Good to
So
go.
it's Phelan O'Hare, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Welcome, I'm Walter.
Nice to meet you.
Amy's on a call, so she might not be joining us. So you'll be
Yeah.
flying solo.
That's okay.
But David Elwell's also on the Zoom, so you have good support around you. Let me know when we're live, Owen.
Nope, we're live. We've been live.
Okay. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? And welcome to 2021, everybody. Our first meeting of the new year. Changes,
I don't have any.
modification? Okay.
I have.
All right. Are there any? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to add under old business, after D, Public Works Mutual Aid Agreement.
Oh, right. So I do have an update on that, which is it's basically almost completely unnecessary. And after talking about it with,
Stay on. Let's just add it to the agenda.
yep.
Okay. So are there comments for items that are not on the agenda? Hearing none. There are approval of prior meeting minutes, and I got some at 5:28. Were there more?
The ones at 528, just a minor correction. So we have, at least I have 4 that I've been working on, and I think there's some others that predate me still. And I was gonna work on December 28th, but I haven't got to them yet. So there's 4 that are ready to approve as far as I'm concerned,
Okay.
if you guys are ready.
And
I am ready. I think.
I move we approve the minutes of November 9th at 6 PM, revision 3.
Do we do this one at a time, or can we do them all at once? Is there a second?
I second. You want to do them one at a time?
I can do them all at once if you were ready.
Sure.
Okay, it's gonna be a long motion then. All right, I move we approve the minutes of November 9th at 6 PM, revision 3. November 10th at 9 AM, revision 3. November 10th at 6 PM, revision 3. And November 24th at 6 PM, revision 0.
I second that motion.
All right, so style was changed to method on one of those, and there was another minor correction, and that was about it.
Yeah, the dates, the dates on the plans were actually, I changed them to, I went and looked back on the email. It was October 26, 2020 for the north section and November 4th, 2020 for the south section. And Jan, thank you for catching that.
No problem.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye in your name.
I Spear.
I Gaudio.
Aye, Wrights. Okay, those are in the books. Treasurer's report.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, this can be short or it can be long. The short of it is revenues came in over projection. Expenses on balance were below budget. These are, pre-audit numbers. There's still some expenses coming in that will allocate to 2020. But generally speaking, we feel good about the position that we ended in, especially considering the year. There's some expenses that might get moved around. We need to do assigned and unassigned with Mindy through the audit process. That's scheduled to happen January 14th.
Questions, Jan, John?
I have several, but I don't, some of them are kind of minor and I don't want to tie the meeting up with that, but I do have, which I'll either talk to Phil or Owen about. They're kind of just minor things, but I am surprised that the assessors account is underspent 40, or almost $5,258, and 4,700 of that is with the contract with RJD. And I guess I don't understand, that's usually a pretty simple thing. Comes pretty,
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that, or did they take some time off during COVID, or?
No, we just got, so I think that they might be a day or so short. I'm not entirely sure exactly, but the remainder of December, we just got the invoice for. So that's one of those will be allocated
Okay.
2020 expenses.
Okay, okay. And-
Yeah, I had been looking at that too, and we
Yeah.
did get that. I think it was 6 or so days at $585 a pop.
Yeah, John, since you brought that up, I had a question that goes back to the assessor's report. Maybe the two are connected. In the assessor's report, it talks about deeds processed, 40 plus deeds processed. Field work property reviews, 50 plus property reviews in December. Those numbers seem significantly higher than usual. I'm just wondering if is that a catch-all? Is that are they trying to make up that $5,000? I don't know.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that they end up doing. I think they end up doing a year-end scramble with towns that they still have outstanding days. I wouldn't necessarily speculate that it compromises the quality of the work that they produce, but usually nearing the end of the year, instead of seeing them every 2 weeks or so, we'll see them more often as they're using up those last days.
Can I make a suggestion? Could you pose those questions to Kevin and have him put an answer in writing?
Sure.
Yeah, because I would challenge the fact that they did that in 1 month. 40 plus deed reviews, that's more than one a day. 50 plus field work, that's more than one a day in the month. So to me, unfortunately, it looks like, oh my gosh, I see we have money left in the contract. I better pad these numbers, to quickly justify them. So that's just Jan Gaudio's opinion, but I'm a little suspect on this one.
Well, I think they could process deeds fairly quickly, but
They could.
I tend to agree with you on the site visit. That takes time.
Yep.
I also have another question on the town landing. Was there something we were going to do there that we didn't? I see we have $5,700 left out of an $8,000 budget.
Yep, that was the Gartley and Dorsey engineering around the town landing, considering
Okay.
the year
Yep.
and how the other projects.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Phase
And
one.
Pardon?
That was phase one of a project that we never really got to.
Yeah, okay. And we talked about the fuel and utilities before. That's way under as well, but I'm good with that. So, again, I might have some minor questions that I'd like to talk to Owen, you or Phil about, but not tonight.
So would you publish the TRIO account level detail reports, please? Send them out to us.
What do you mean?
I think we have them.
I think that's what we have here, is it?
Yep, so I kind of did two different styles this time. One is your normal, and that was the closeout of December. And then this one just kind of had a highlighted, and then you didn't get any of that?
I got the one that came in yesterday that is
Yeah, that was
basically the kind of high level summary. I didn't get the detail.
Yep,
Yeah, they
in the packet that I sent you, I had scanned all of those and included that.
They came.
Well, I just scrolled through it and it was never there that I could find.
They came out at different times,
Oh,
which is what made it a little confusing.
Oh, boy,
Um,
that means I'm gonna be even more confused.
No,
All right,
but I'm happy to resend those.
I'll go look and make sure and then can you guys, will you please give me the December 31st, 2020 ending balance of the transfer renovation reserve, please? I need that. What you gave me was the December 31st, 2019 balance.
Oh, because yeah, I had passed that along to Phil. I thought,
We spent out of that reserve, and I need to know the balance, what's left in that reserve.
Yep.
And we're closing on the loan on January 28th or February 5th, so I need those numbers. I can calculate it, but I don't want to take that to the bank.
no, I agree. And I thought that
And I'll
we
tell you
had-
what. Will Mindy nail that on January 14th, or can you guys get it to me before that?
No, we can get it to you before that. We don't
Okay.
have to wait
All right,
for
thanks.
Mindy on that.
Okay. All right.
You're talking about in the capital fund, the transfer station? Is that
Yeah, we transferred money to that reserve. Then we spent 23,000 odd out of that reserve to buy the new
Yeah.
compactors. I need to know what the balance in that reserve is. As to flush out the funding for the balance of the project.
Well, according to the document, as of January 1st, there's still $153,645 in there.
No,
That was what was in originally. That was
Yeah.
what was in originally.
Yep. What that number represents, Jan, was that deposit into it and into that account. That number doesn't reflect any debts to that account, just that deposit.
Also, it would have been a small amount of interest.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can take that number and you can less out what we had already paid to the transfer station, but it won't be immediately detailed because there's interest and things with that. But yes, there is an expense that should be lessed out from that number.
Okay.
I think that section you're looking at, Jan.
Yeah, page 5 on the document.
Yeah, and so this one's a little interesting in that it has this section I've never really fully understood. It has a hodgepodge of different numbers in there, all of which we understand the numbers, but how they all got lumped together. For example, the boat excise.
Yep.
That actually seemed to hop around a little bit, but I think it's because it's related to that reserve, the town landing reserve monies as well. But the ones that didn't necessarily have deposits on them, those numbers are interest that were accrued on them. But the larger ones, like the fire truck reserve, that's more significant because it's interest plus the payback for the ambulance. And then that other standout was the deposit to initially fund the transfer station reserve. So that shows what those took in for revenues to kind of populate them or the interest they got through the year.
So we just didn't deduct anything from it. We're just showing the balance with interest.
We did deduct it, but that's shown in a different part of the financials. That section, the 66 capital, just shows the revenues, and those revenues were both from interest and from deposits of taxpayer monies when they said we could fund those.
Okay, because of course, if you look over on page 4, under expenses, item 09, op trans res, transfer station reserve still shows 153,479. So it doesn't look like we've taken any deductions from that account, any expenses.
Yep.
So
And
that 23,000 came out of it, didn't come out of that account.
no, it did. I think those two are tied. One's the expense, one's the revenue.
Yeah,
but those don't necessarily show additional deductions out of that reserve account. That shows just the initial big money transfer from one to populate the other. And with all of these financials that you look at, if they were digital form and you double clicked them, it starts telling you more and more information. But though, and I could be, maybe I don't have it exactly right, but those two are tied together just as that initial deposit and revenue, and doesn't show the additional activity within it.
okay, so going back to what Walter's asking for, I guess we don't show that. We don't show anything being taken out of that account anywhere on your report here.
Not on those, not on these reports, no.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't want to drain this, but please give me that number because it's important. And secondly, now that you've raised the subject, and let's put this on the agenda for the next meeting is after the audit. Is that correct?
Yes.
I don't have my calendar with me. Okay.
You have a workshop, but the next meeting is after.
Yeah.
the audit.
Okay.
26.
Right. So, among other things, I would like to see the flow of what happened with the debt service for when we borrowed from ourselves for the ambulance. I want to see what reserves got populated with that $36,000.
Wait, can you say that again, just so I understand?
Yeah, we had debt service of $36,500, something like that,
Mhm.
which is one of the first year of payback
Mhm.
for when we borrowed from all the reserves in order to fund the ambulance.
Yep.
So
That,
that $36,500 is not the number that sticks in my head. Needs to be paid back to the reserves that the $153,000 was taken from. So I'd just like to see how that was allocated.
okay, yep. I think, anyway, except you kind of confused me with the 153, because that's the transfer station number. Are we talking transfer station or ambulance?
No. Whatever we borrowed from ourselves to fund the ambulance.
Yeah, and I believe that is shown in that fire truck reserve in that section Jan and I were talking about before.
Well, rather than speculate, just on the 26th of January, just answer my question, please.
You got it.
So we'll bring 1/5 of a smile to Brian's face.
But I'm pretty sure what I'm going to tell you is that number represents what we said we were going to fund for the fire truck reserve plus the payback. That's why it's much larger than just the initial fire truck reserve annual, kind of keep that reserve going, because it's both keeping
I know that.
on pace.
I know that. Okay. All right. Like I said, I don't
I'm-
want to drain that.
I'm glad we're tackling that too, because I found it hard to believe that we earned $82,000 in interest on that account. So I assumed it was sort of a misallocation, but
No, like I said, it's both interest plus deposits.
yeah, I know, but it says interest.
Oh, yeah, I understand. I
I
understand.
think what happened is we'll deal with it at the next meeting.
Okay. So budget makers, good job. Department heads at being frugal, but getting your jobs done as well in difficult circumstances. Owen, you have your hands up.
Well, I just, I know we're past agenda changes, but I was looking at the agenda and didn't know if you wanted to take Phelan up before the department head so she could go about her business.
I was going to suggest that. Okay, so Phelan, absent Amy to introduce you, we know that she is recommending that we bring you on board as a driver, but you've also, you're going through the certification. So why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and I'll let Jan and John then ask some questions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fallon. I am a
Fallon.
driver. It's okay. I'm a driver for Thomaston as well. I just finished the EMT course with Amy and going to pursue my advanced license as well. I just need to test out for my EMT. I'm a mom of 3 and I live right here in Rockland. I'm also an ED tech at the Waldo Hospital. And I have my CNA license as well. So yeah, kind of all over the place, I guess.
John, Jan?
Yeah,
I didn't hear what you said, what you are at Waldo?
An ED tech, so just a technician.
ED, what's ED?
Emergency department.
Okay, great.
yeah, I don't have any questions, Fallon. I glad to have you aboard. I know that Amy runs a great ship, and I think you're going to enjoy working with her.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, what's the attraction of adding South Thomaston to your list of towns that you're working for?
It's to get a lot more experience on the ambulance. My life career goal, I guess you could say, is to be a flight nurse. So you need so many years and so many different departments. I need 5 years on ambulance, like 2 years in an ICU unit, and the list goes on. So the more experience and more learning opportunities I have are the better.
Great.
Well, I would move that we accept the recommendation of the director of the ambulance department for Fallon O'Hare to be hired as a driver.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Audio aye.
Oops, sorry. Spear, aye.
I guess I should call roll. Jan? You said aye, didn't you? And I will say aye. So Fallon, Happy New Year and welcome to the South Thomaston Ambulance Service. And we look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much, all of you. I really appreciate it.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
All right, Chief Calderwood.
Hello. I'd like to, I don't know if we want to fully discuss this tonight while we're on Zoom or how we want to go about this, but the fire pond project that was put in the budget for 2020 was not completed due to the pond was over full by the time we got around to having the expenses to start the project. There's also been lack of communication with the company that was selected to do the work. I know material has been ordered by them, and we've been trying, myself and the deputy chief, to get at least the invoice so we can pay for the material. So then next year, or however we want to work on this, we have everything set up. But my main question to the board is, how do we want to, what's the best motion or movement to go with this project so we can try and get it completed in 2021 when the funds were taken out in 2020 and all that fun stuff that we tend to discuss around budget time.
Well, the question is, what funds, what's been transferred? There's a reserve involved here. So
Yeah,
what has been transferred out of that reserve, if anything?
off the top of my head, I think it's maybe around $600-700 has only been taken out of the account for material or items that were needed for the project, part of it, not all of it. We don't have the piping yet. My last communication I heard was the piping had been ordered. Don't know where it is. The bill did not show up before December 31st. The actual bringing in the equipment and that type of stuff never happened because of the overflow of water and stuff like that. That would have raised the whole quote. I'd like to still do it. I'd like to do it next year or this year, however you want to look at it.
John?
Just because I wasn't involved, can you tell me just roughly how much the total project was?
It was around $7,000, I believe. And it was all being funded straight out of the fire pond reserve account.
So correct me if I'm wrong. The balance absent the $600 is still in that reserve. And what we're confronted with is to release those funds from that reserve, which is a release of the funds for the purpose for which the reserve is created. I think can't we do that with the three of us? John?
I'm comfortable with that. I think legally we can do releases from reserve funds as long as it's for the purpose which they were created. We have not had a tradition of doing that here. We have typically gone back to town meeting, but in this case, we already did. So I think this is just sort of circumstances where it didn't get done in one year and we're just going to do it to the next year. I'm personally, when the time comes, comfortable with doing that because the town's already approved it once.
That's right. Jan?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I think John's thinking is right. The town's already approved it. Yeah, we'll go ahead.
So come June, I guess, when budget time comes, or actually when you're making your 18-month budget, Brian, are we going to see a request to further fund the fire department, the fire pond reserve in the year 2021? Because that gets us into the double count situation of taking out of a reserve and putting into it in the same year.
Yeah, that's the guidance I'm looking from you guys. How do I approach it with my budget for the 18-month? Do I put it back in there, or how do I go about it in that aspect?
Well, let's assume that we're going to take out. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to add to that account because I know I want to get the project completed.
Okay. All right.
That was the main concern, is how to work the number aspects. So, we didn't do it, and now I want to do it. So
when you tee up and you're ready, you have not more than tacit support from the board that will look favorably upon removing the funds from the reserve at that time.
All right.
If we go all the way to town meeting, we might even ask to tick and tie with the town. But those usually they don't usually cause any kind of controversy when we do those fund from the reserve to offset a budget item.
But I think, Brian, to answer your question, I would not put in your budget any money to go into that reserve account.
Okay.
All right, can I ask who the contractor is?
Wilson Landscaping. And I have, just as a backup plan, I have reached out to J.K. Kellick to get a quote to see what it would be in case I have to fall back on a different plan, at least to have a backup contractor ready to go to do the job if need be. And the main reason we didn't do it in 2020 is the fire season, COVID, and then host testing. So it was kind of put on the back burner until the last minute, and then all of a sudden we got rain and it filled up the pond. So it made it
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Brian, you wanted to add something else to your list?
If I can, I just briefly, this has been on my table and on my to-do list, probably, let's see, I've been chief for 15 years. So probably the last 10 years, it's been a topic and an irritation on the fire side of it. We can't is to do with radio communications. We can't be standing on Route 131 and talk back to the fire station. We can't be sitting down on, say, by Atwood's Wharf and be able to talk back to the fire station on our frequency. It's all due to demographics and tree line and line of sight and that type of stuff. I talked to the communications director the other day briefly, and we've been shooting around for the last few years about putting in a repeater for the fire, for our personal tactical channel. I contacted radio communications out of, I think it's Brunswick or South Portland, who I'm familiar with back from when I worked for the communication center, to tapping into their world of communications on what's the process and what I have to go about to do this, or look at it for funds aspects. Step one is to map the town and see what works for frequencies. And I was asked where I wanted to put this antenna for the repeater. I mentioned our station. I got schooled and educated really quick that was not a good idea, because if the station's the problem, why put the antenna where the problem is? There are other suggestions, and there's a cost to doing the mapping. It's about $250 to $300 just to do the mapping and to figure out what's the plan. You know, do we go forward and stuff like that? I was asked if there was another town building that we could put the antenna on. The only other town building, and I've been here for quite a while, and I'm sure someone's going to correct me, but the only town building I can think of is the school. And that's too close to the station. I haven't got a full, complete answer on that, if that would work or not. And not knowing what the future is on the school, I'm not really up to date on that project. But what I guess I'm asking is, can I move forward on this process? I will put the funds of the mapping into my 2021-22 budget to cover that cost, to start the process, to see where we're at and go from there, I guess is what I'm looking for, because it's a big unknown of which way this could go. We might have, and just speculating, we might have to ask a property owner about putting an antenna on their building that makes it closer. You know, my location of where my house is kind of in the middle. It might work, it might not. I don't know those things. It's just, I want to look into researching this project, because someday down the road, we're really going to need this frequency up and running. And it doesn't just benefit me, it benefit, not me personally, the fire department. It benefits also the ambulance. It can also benefit EMA for our town as well, in the event that we all have to be on that same frequency and communication is needed. So that's what I'm just one project I'm trying to tackle for 21, 22, to set up the department for the future when I'm not here and someone else gets to run the show.
Jan?
All right, help me understand mapping. Is that just an elevation mapping? You're trying to determine the high point where you'll get the line of sight?
Yes,
Okay.
that's my understanding from it.
Yeah,
You have a, go ahead. Sorry, Jan.
no, I would just, my thoughts are again that we've got several other what I would call elevations where we've got transmitters and so on. And I'm now thinking about the airport. So, yeah, I mean, I have no objection to doing an elevation, but I think there may be towers that we could tie into, you know, that in this case may belong to the county, but we could certainly petition the county. So there's, you know, there ought to be some options there without having to build a tower or
Yeah.
Negotiate property from the private owner, that sort of thing. We're just talking about a repeater. It's just a small antenna, if it's what I'm used to in the military, and it should not be a major construction project or anything.
Yeah, and my understanding, Jan, and the rest of the board, is that's what this mapping will do. It will show where the repeater antenna actually could go, and there could be a tower, like Jan was saying, there could be a tower that's already standing, and we can tap into that and go from that route versus having to reinvent the entire wheel.
Yeah, the only reason I mention it, Brian, is if they just look at the town of South Thomaston, they wouldn't look at the airport.
Right.
So you just, you know, if you're going to do it, you might just sort of mention to them that there are existing towers that in this case would be on county property that we might want to consider.
And if I could add, in the RCM, they are the ones that actually do the maintenance, radio maintenance for the county. and they're actually going to be in the county tomorrow. But not that they're doing a major upgrade, so I won't be able to talk to them then, but they makes them more familiar with our area of where all our towers are currently through the county. So there might be one that would actually work better for us. So thank you.
Sounds good.
John, you had a question? Sorry, Jim.
Yeah, Brian, I'm assuming, and if you don't know the answer to this, perhaps you could find it out, that if it can be mounted on a building, it could be mounted on a pole.
Yes, and
I'm-
talking with Owen the other day, that was mentioned as well. And it depends on how tall this antenna really is. And like Jan said, it's probably something short. So it is. This is what the mapping would dictate what's available to us. So there could be a potential.
Well, I was just gonna say, if it's similar to repeaters that I'm familiar with, this is nothing like a cell tower. This is a very small,
Right.
yeah, antenna that's, you almost can't see if you're more than 30 feet away or something.
Yeah, right.
I just don't want the impression out there that we're talking about putting up a 60-foot cell tower somewhere.
No, that's not, no. I'm with you on that.
Okay.
Been reading the experience in Rockland, have you, John?
No, I just know how
Mhm.
sometimes things get misconstrued early.
Oh, yeah. Owen?
And just real quick, it won't really have any bearing, and Brian's gonna do his, this work, and I think that's awesome. When I do the training for the smart controls for the street lights, I was just gonna bring up and see what potential might exist for any tying in of small hubs, because those tops are change outable. I don't know if it has any potential, but Brian and I talked about that as well. We'll see if that's an option.
All right, so I think, Brian, put it in your budget.
Yep, I will. And I have one thing, if I can, before I'll let you all leave for the evening.
No, you can leave.
That's right. I get to leave. Just an FYI, since we're talking radio communications, just so you're aware, it won't affect half of you, but effective tomorrow morning, the entire radio communications for, I believe, fire and EMS, it could involve law enforcement, but I'm not positive, will be shut down. We will have no radio communications on our normal frequencies. Pagers will not work. The old system, I have put this, I believe, in my monthly reports. The old current system as of today is going offline, and the new system is going on tomorrow. So we have all been informed by the communications director of how we're going to make this work. Yes, it's going to be a frustrating day, but we will make it work, and cell phones will be utilized a lot. So, but that's just an update.
How long a period are we talking about?
That part wasn't given to me, John. I'm going to say at least 8 hours minimum, but it could
Okay.
be shorter. My understanding is the entire force is coming from RCM, which is the radio, like I said, the maintenance guys, and they're going to each tower, and my understanding, they're doing it all at once. So to try and delay the amount of lag time of not having communications working.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
Night.
Penny?
Good evening. I have 2 items, starting with the cemetery. We have been approved for a Maine Old Cemetery Association Preservation Workshop, July 30th through August 2nd. They fund this, and it up to a rate of $1,000 a day, so it's quite a coup to get them here. We will work in the village cemetery, and this workshop will be offered at no charge to anyone interested in participating. And we get a lot of free, gentle stone cleaning, and they get the proper training. So quite possibly we can reduce that contracted services line in the cemetery budget by maybe half next year. We will hope to fund 4 days beyond the workshop with Gravestone Matters to continue their fine work. And at the library, exercise has been going very well. We are coming to the end of our first 7-week scheduling of the Zoom classes. I would like to continue using the town's credentials, if that's okay. And also, I had a thought that it's been 5 years since we've had a major meltdown at the library. And last time it happened, I was able to use book sale money to replace the circulation desk PC, which was $500 at that time. So I wondered if I could get a pre-approval to spend book sale money should we need to replace the circulation desk PC and possibly the barcode scanner. So I'm looking for kind of a pre-approval to spend up to, say, $750 on the circulation desk from book sale revenue.
Questions, comments, motion?
You have that money in your book sale account? I mean,
Yes, we do.
Okay.
What do you get for $500?
Well, last time Rockbound Computers built us a computer, we used our existing monitor, keyboard, and the barcode scanner. But the barcode scanner is over 10 years old now, so it might be we need to update that for our circulation. And at the last meeting, there was talk about how different items were secured through the town, through the computer when you were talking to Gus. And I just wanted to mention that the library's circulation is hosted online. So it's nothing that we have to back up or store or anything. That's all taken care of in our licensing fee with Library World.
John?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. If I don't want to, I mean, if that goes down and we don't meet for 3 weeks or something, that's going to be a problem. And given the age, so I would move that we authorize up to $750 from the purchase for the purchase of a computer and or barcode scanner with revenue from the book sale fund.
I second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? All right, hearing none. John?
Aye.
Jan?
My surprise.
Go aye.
After 6 months, I've decided to do roll call professionally and correctly. Jan?
Audio aye.
And Wright's aye. Thanks, Penny.
Thank you very much.
Quick question.
Okay.
On the Zoom, is there any problem with continuing on the exercise class on that? I mean, that is the town's account. You're part of the town, so.
Well, I hope there isn't. Owen, do you know of any reason?
Absolutely not. I mean, I go into it and I see that you plug the meetings in and none of them have conflicted with anything that we've done. And I think that we have a good understanding that if it's a choice between an exercise class and a meeting of the select board for a workshop or whatever, that they, the town business would take priority. But outside of that and barring that, it is a town asset and anyone can use it at their discretion for
Okay.
town related activities kind of already approved.
Thank you. I didn't realize we were limited to one at a time, but that makes sense, I guess, but.
Well, thank you very much and Happy New Year. We will get better.
Thanks, Penny.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, so Amy, you have a new hire and welcome to the meeting.
Thank you.
And Animal care facility agreement, Ralph and Owen.
Yeah, before you move from Amy, can I have a question?
Sure.
Amy, on your report, I noticed that under the vaccine, you say vaccines were given to all licensed personnel that wanted one and a few firefighters and drivers. I mean, did we have people opt out of it?
There has been people that's opted out of it.
And how do you handle those I mean, where do you put those in your lineup then?
So it's not mandatory at this point. So what we do, I actually in South Thomaston, I have only one, and it's a medical reason. So, and that they couldn't get it. So other than that, all South Thomaston techs have gotten their first vaccination. And we actually had 2 firefighters and the drivers that drive for us on the list, and they did get theirs because firefighters and drivers and police are not until the next tier. But we didn't want to waste. So Chief Wytalk had people come in that was on the first line and drove a lot and gave them the vaccination. So we did have Ralph and Todd, which drive for us nightly and cover per diem shifts, that did get their vaccination. So that was really good.
So only one South Thomaston person hasn't received it. I got it.
Yep.
John?
Other than a couple drivers, that's
Right.
not up until next time. Yep.
John?
So Amy, when you say the firefighters got it, it really wasn't because they were a firefighter, it's because they work EMS.
Correct.
Because I think there's a lot of contention out there about who's getting what. And I just want to be very clear that they firefighters happened to get it because they happened to walk in the door that day or something.
No. We had people that ran a lot of calls, and we were called and asked, hey, do you have somebody that runs a lot on your ambulance? So that's why.
They got it by virtue of their ambulance function.
Yes.
Okay.
When did all these take place? I'm going to divert a little bit. So Ralph, any side effects? You're muted.
So,
So,
go ahead, Ralph.
yeah, no side effects at all. I was a little sore in the shoulder, but I guess there's been people have had different effects, but I'm fine. I didn't feel bad at all, and look forward to the second dose.
Great. I'm
So,
looking forward to the first.
So I was a little different. I had some side effects, but they have gone now. So I had a headache, and my arm was sore, and I had a few hives at the area site. So
Wow.
yeah, and some nausea for a couple days.
Sounds better than a ventilator.
Yes, it does. Exactly. So I will be getting my second dose.
All right. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have the proposal from the Pope Memorial. Who's batting? Owen?
Yeah, I'll just kind of tee it up and then let Ralph, provide any information that he wants to. So this is kind of a standard thing that we do typically every year. There is an option this contract to do a 3-year. Actually, I think we've done 3 years before. So we do this. We're required to do it. No new kind of facilities coming into town that we know of. So 3-year contract makes sense. We save 5 cents per resident. They do it on a prorated basis. So really the decision on 1 or 3 years is kind of in front of you. I think it makes sense to do 3 years. The other thing to consider is the fee that you can assess. Each town can assess an additional fee. So when those individuals go and collect their animal, they get basically a fee from Pope. And then anything that the town assessed for a fee would be put on top of that. They would need to collect that for the individual to get their animal back. And then anything that we've assessed for a fee would get accounted by Pope. And then our quarterly payments that we make for this contract, that amount would get reduced out of the bill that they send to us. So we don't get checks as far as revenue from them, but our expenses get reduced. And just to kind of shape that out a little bit more, the $45 fee really did stand out. And so when I talked with Pope about it, that one was Montville, which is a significantly longer distance than the other more close towns. So like I said in the email that I sent today, Rockland does a $10 fee and Thomaston does a $5 fee. I might have those backwards, but the fees, if there are some that are assessed, seem to be around that $5 or $10 mark. You don't have to. And if that's something that you wanted to poll the town on, you could start talking about an ordinance. We don't have any ordinances for dogs, but I'm confusing two different conversations right now. So 3-year contract, and do you want to do a fee?
Yep, I move that we accept the 3-year contract with Pope Memorial Humane Society.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. John?
I have a question. How much is the fee that Pope charges? I don't know if you know that, Owen, or maybe Ralph does.
It's like $12 a day. So there's like an initial intake, and then I think they said it was $12 a day. And then they do try to work with people, to get them their animals back. But and there's some relationship with the state. I don't think that they're like a there's not a ton of money to be made in this type of work.
No, I'm not going there at all. I just want to know how much someone's already getting hit. So what's the initial fee?
I don't know what their intake fee is like, if it hits in the same day, if it's like 25 at first and then $12 a day after that. The $12 a day was something that stood out in my head from our conversation, but I don't remember asking them like if it happened in the same day intake fee.
Okay, thank you.
Ralph, could I ask a question? How many animals are we talking about that Pope gets in a year from South Thomaston?
That's actually a great question, Jan. It's really insignificant. I've taken since March when I took over, I've taken 3 animals. They were all picked up the next day. The owners paid, and I believe it's $25. It's not a fact, but I believe it's a $25.
That number, I feel like I've heard that number too.
And we can add you can add $5 or $10. I really think it's insignificant. I mean, to the work you've got to go through to the town to get this approved. I mean, and the hate and discontent it may or may not cause. I think it's insignificant. I think we can just move on with that 3-year contract. Would be great.
It's not quite germane to the motion, but do you need any equipment funding or anything, Ralph, for
I do. There are some things that the town doesn't have that I do need. I've been lucky so far, and I've been able to borrow some stuff from my uncle, who was the animal control officer, William Demons, previous to me. But we do need to look at getting some live traps, and we do need to look at. I need to get a cat hole. I have had one dog that I had to take in as a dog bite, and I actually ended up having the owner with me in the truck because I had no way of controlling the dog.
Things that you think are now needed, talk
Yep.
to Owen about funding them now. And then anything that we can put in the budget, let us know that as well. I just want to,
I appreciate that, Walter. And Owen and I had that conversation. We didn't want to bother you with that tonight, but we'll be bringing that up to you in the future.
Okay. All right. On the motion, John,
Aye.
Jan,
Audio aye.
Walter, aye, Wright's aye. So 3-year contract. Fee, that's for the users. Sense of the board? I think you heard Ralph's recommendation, who's sort of kind of on the firing line.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Ralph. I don't think it's worth the effort.
I'm not inclined to go there.
Yeah, I would think that the cost and aggravation of collecting it will exceed what we can collect.
And then
Okay.
the pet gets held hostage.
We really want to reunite the pet with the
Yeah,
dog.
exactly. Otherwise, they'll show up in a Sarah McLaughlin $19 a month commercial.
Jeez.
Hey, it tugs at the heartstrings. That's why.
Oh no, you just gave me big flashbacks. Thanks. I watched one of those commercials the other day. It was horrible. Could you all please, and I'm sorry for not catching it during the initial motion. I think oh no, I can sign this as the designee for the town.
Okay.
All right. Ralph, thank you.
All right, have a good night, guys.
You too.
Hey, Walter, before we leave this and let Ralph, before you go, Owen, you sent us a bunch of the statute from the state. And as I looked at that and I looked at the job description, the one you sent me, I noticed shows a draft as of October 2016. That implies we never smoothed it. But I'm, just so you know, I'm going to recommend that we work in some of the requirements that are in the state statute regarding certification, regarding advanced training and things like that, and work that into the job description. I think it should be there. So that's just my thoughts on it, but that'll be my recommendation as we go forward. And I know we're going to do a personnel review anyway, so this job description can fall under that. If you have any other thoughts, Ralph, on the job description, please don't hesitate to get it to Owen or get it to us.
Okay.
Good.
I will
Thanks,
say, just one more thing. I will say that I did contact the state today. There's been some issues with getting certified. The phase 1 of my certification is online. I can get that at any point. I have that to bring to Owen tomorrow to have him sign and send out. Phase 2 was not available at all in 2020 and may not be available in 2021 due to COVID. It's all hands-on, and they're not doing any hands-on right now. And that would be something I would need in order to be officially certified. You need both phase 1 and phase 2. So we're working on it, but hopefully we'll get there.
Is that what you're talking about in where it says a minimum of 8 hours of training each year?
The minimum 8 hours is continued education. It's the initial certification is actually 2 parts. It's like I said, there's an online class. Not sure how many hours that takes. And then there's a class that I actually have to go to where we do some hands-on things as well as go over stuff as far as like courtroom procedures, issuing summonses and whatnot.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thanks, folks.
Okay.
All right, Ad hoc Technology Committee.
So I neglected to get Clifford the, hey, do you want to participate? And here's the Zoom stuff until recently. So I don't think that he got that. So my apologies on not having him here. He did pass along a bit of his resume or credentials. I believe some of you all know him. It'd currently be a committee of 1 without kind of a charge or a policy quite yet, but primarily what we've been doing this for is just getting a bit of a champion that can sit on that Knox County Broadband Coalition that they're working on and start to absorb that information. And we can put more meat on the bones of a technology committee and more members over time. Some of the folks that were, generally interested that I talked with, they didn't want to be proposed for appointment to this committee at this time. But those folks are still going to be monitoring. They're going to be kept in the loop of that Knox County collaborative. So I think that when you get to a place of considering making a decision, you will have a handful of folks that have been keeping up with this do have experience. Clifford was the one that responded to the notice that I sent out and did specifically request to be appointed to the Ad Hoc Technology Committee.
So what does the consortium look like? Does it have a structure, or is this still a work in progress?
It's been meeting for some time. There's a structure.
Yeah, so Tilson Technology, many years ago, Rockport, Rockland, and Owl's Head all collaborated on a Tilson broadband study. From that, Rockport kind of got energized. Rockport kind of teamed up with Camden because that's what they do. But then the existing relationship, it became a bigger band recently. And then that kind of just got rolled into the kind of existing structure for the streetlight project that we all kind of did as a collaborative. So they were building off that. So there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of information, and then it seems to be piggybacking on the streetlight, the kind of success of the streetlight, to see if we can keep moving in that type direction. Not everyone's, in Knox County is on board. There's 18 different towns in the county. So not everyone's on it, but there's a good amount of experience, and I think they can at least come up with some better recommendations. And I think I told you all before, I did ask for clarity on kind of generally speaking, what is the purpose? And it was nice that they are more focused on the rural areas and not high-speed internet, but fiber optics, really screaming fast internet service to the more rural areas, which definitely will help South Thomaston, because that's like the entirety of our town. The bigger towns are trying to do it for their rural areas. They already have it in their downtowns and in their kind of businessy areas. They're trying to get it out to the nether regions of their town, which will be really beneficial for us because that's our entire town.
John?
Well, I'm kind of inclined to go ahead and appoint Cliff and continue to try to recruit people. And someone expressed interest. I don't really want to sit on it. I'd like to keep the momentum going. And even though he's a committee of one, it gives him a little, lack of a better word, legitimacy to sit in on these meetings. And he can say, I'm currently a committee of one for South Thomaston. But so I would, I'd make a motion that we appoint Cliff and we continue to this ad hoc committee, and that we continue to try to recruit folks to join them.
Good for you. I agree. Second.
Can that be for maybe just put some term on there just so that we've done that? 1 year I think seems appropriate considering it's ad hoc.
I think where it's ad hoc, I purposely left a term out.
Oh, okay. Yep. No, that's fine.
Just because I'd like to see an ad hoc committee sort of finish their business, so to speak. And
nope, that makes sense. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'll third the motion since it's going to result in us coughing up a really high-powered representative from the town for this committee. So any discussion? All in favor? John?
aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Walter? Aye. Thank you, Owen and Cliff.
So before we move on though, I would request that Owen, you kind of explain, Cliff, sort of the situation, and we're still trying to recruit people, and you will, but and kind of our reasoning to behind this to kind of keep the train rolling, or at least get it started rolling. So, and I don't know, I'm not a techie type person too much, but I'd be curious on how we could reach out. I don't know if through the library could help us, or I know we sent out the email notice to the listserv and put it on the website, but it seems like we got to go a little further. And I don't really have any good ideas other than maybe the library could help us.
Penny?
How do you think the library could help, I'd be happy to do.
Well,
what
because
we
you
could.
you contact a lot of people that, you have contact with a lot of people that don't necessarily have contact with the listserv or the website. I don't know if you could pass out notices or post it down there or whatever, but, you know, and it strikes me that libraries have become sort of technology centers too over the years.
Well, I'll put it on our website and post notices for sure.
Yeah, anything that can help. And Owen has a notice.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, so I sent that out to the email listserv. It's on the main page of the website, but it's not like super prominent. And one thing that I have done in the past that I think has netted some decent results is posting a help wanted ad around town. I've done that for other committees, and that you post it the same place that I post meeting agendas. So I'm happy to do that and then get some to Penny as well.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to say we're going to continue to try to recruit and then don't do anything.
Yep.
I will add too that, you know, you saw Dorothy's email probably on what's going on at the airport. I sit on the APAC for the town, and I'm going to stay engaged in this just out of interest for the town. You know, as the airport moves forward with their modifications and improvements, any place I see that the town can take advantage of that. I'm not a techie either, but I certainly have an interest in understand the value of a better internet and a better broadband capability within the town.
Excuse my ignorance, but where in town would I go to live and not have any internet access?
Brian Calderwood's house.
Yeah, well, I think you can get it now anywhere that you have a phone because you can still get it through Fairpoint. The question is, you know, can you do anything with it? It's such a narrow pipe, if you will, that it's not very reliable. I had it for a long time here in Sprucehead, Fairpoint internet. I finally was able to get, it used to be, yeah, what is it now?
Spectrum.
Yeah, I was finally able to get Spectrum, you know, which is a whole lot better. But if you want to do anything like distant learning, I mean, if you want to sit like we are now and do Zoom and do distant learning where you're watching video and things like that, it was impossible on my Fairpoint line. So I don't know if that applies to other people, but.
Well, it's 20 megs down if you get their multiplexer. That's what I have. I'm the sad story of I didn't pull cable when I built my house because I wanted satellite so I could have NFL Sunday Ticket. That was very short-sighted.
So Walter, I have a question to you then. Your question kind of leads me to think do we need to do this? I guess I don't understand enough about it, but when you ask that question, is that sort of the assumption behind it, or?
No, I think every time when I read about, you know, broadband for rural Maine, and I mean, I think telecommuting from Maine is very much an underexploited value. Given the quality of life and the attraction that this state should have for a younger population that is tech savvy and can work from home. You know, if you're a software developer for most organizations now, you never have to go to the head shed except once a year. But we're limited by our infrastructure, and our broadband infrastructure is one of the things that we're limited. But when I hear the issue articulated, it's articulated more in terms of access than in terms of speed. But I would agree that we need to upgrade speed. And I think, so they go hand in hand. I mean, I would kill to have fiber on my street because then I could still have NFL Sunday Ticket and I could have 80 megs.
Okay, I understand.
Owen.
No, I mean, I spent a decent amount of time talking about this in Rockport and other towns. We don't need to waste our time with it now, but it's an interesting topic. It's one that's not going away. And, you know, even though it's not necessarily a massive issue right now, it just will never become a smaller issue. So understanding more of it from the town perspective as that we start thinking more of information as a utility like we have with, you know, water and power and things like that. It's just going to be an inevitable. So participation in this puts the town in a better position to adjust accordingly.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck to Cliff. And let's hope that he has some colleagues. Okay, item D, discussion of budget guidance for department heads, because they should start thinking about the budget, although I know that most of them are. Thoughts from the board about what we should document and tell them to keep their eye on, or to limit themselves, or to unlimit themselves for the budget. You know, we typically put out a one-pager. Wages and salaries should be in this range. Priorities should be this, that, and the other thing. Protect our assets, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just looking for the sense of the board for what we want to communicate so we can get the process going.
Yeah, I for one, Walter, I don't think it needs to be much different than what you've sent out each year. I mean, I think, you know, we want to talk about a cost of living adjustment if we're going to do that. Other than that, I think, you know, they need to put their budget together. Other than, you know, we're obviously asking for an 18-month budget instead of a 12-month. But with the exception of that, I think the mindset behind it should be the same. You know, tell us what you need. You know, don't be frivolous, which I don't think they are. And you know, we'll hash it out during the budget process. But I mean, I'm you know, John, as far as the timeline, John put together a nice timeline a few weeks ago, which also I think included the budget cycle. And so, I mean, I think date-wise, I guess I'd go back to that. I don't have it in front of me, but I go back to that and see, okay, what's the timing for this? I don't think it needs to be, you know, significantly different than we've done in the past, other than the period of time is long.
I'm not sure what, when you refer to what's been sent out the past couple of years, I don't have that. So is that something somebody could send to me, or no, I don't mean this minute, but.
I probably have last year's, you know, it basically is a one-page memo that Walter had sent out as the chair, you know, kind of giving some guidance to the department heads. Very basic guidance.
So
I'd just like to see what it was, that's all.
Yeah, I'm sure I have it, but if let's send it to John, and how about if we just spend a minute hearing John's thoughts on Thursday morning, and then I'll go from there. Because I agree, Jan, I just want to put a stake in the ground for them so that they can get the process started. Although obviously you heard Brian is well on the way, if you will.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I would like to see us provide a COLA to our employees. I think they've actually struggled this year more than many years. So I didn't want to put that discussion off. If you folks are prepared to talk about that tonight, I certainly was. I didn't want to not do it because I hadn't seen the memo. I just was curious to see it. But I also would like, my general philosophy has always been, I really would like people, again, I don't want to use the word frivolous, but I definitely like department heads to let us know what they're thinking and what they need, because if they don't, even though it may not make it, may not over the bar, then we don't know what they're thinking and what their needs are. And then I feel like, you know, I'm misinformed, so to speak. So, but anyways, but I'm prepared to talk about a wage COLA if you folks are.
I am. Yeah, go ahead. Got thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to, I am not, I know everybody's talking about belt tightening and stuff, but I would like to see us put a number out there. And it's certainly one that keeps up with inflation.
Okay, well, The state view of CPI increase for year over year is 2%. So that's their stake in the ground. Social Security, which does that. So that's a main number.
Yeah.
And the Social Security 1.3 increase is a national number. So I think that we're justifiably different from that because of distance, et cetera. So starting point is 2%.
What did we do last year?
We did 2% COLA and another percent or 1.5% for performance-related increases, which were not guaranteed to everybody. Yeah, Owen.
So if you'll give me just a second. So this was the 2019 guidance for the 2020 budget. So it's budget time again. Salaries, wages, and stipends, 3% of your 2019 budget is your target. This permits 2% cost of living adjustment and additional funding for performance and merit. Exception requests and their justification should be in writing to the select board. So this is generally what it looked like for the 2020 guidance.
Okay.
It's pretty much what it looked like for 2019 too.
Okay. So people, that was one of the questions I had. So if someone feels that a position is underpaid or overpaid theoretically, they certainly could come in and argue to, could come into the selectmen and present a case that I'm not looking for a COLA here. I'm looking for an exception or an adjustment because of a certain workload or something like that. So that I'm happy that's there.
The ambulance department did that last year, in fact.
Yeah, but when we say the performance, is that the awards that we've been
No.
voting on? Okay.
No.
So what is the two?
The performance is a one-time thing.
Okay, so what's the, I guess I don't understand the difference.
The performance-related increase. Sorry, John, I'm talking over you. I apologize.
No. In that top line on that letter Owen just showed, there were two, I thought there were two numbers there.
Well, there's really, yeah, it was payroll increase of, we're targeting a payroll increase of 3%, of which 2% is COLA. So that's cost of living adjustment. And then there's another percent, and I think the year before that it was even more for merit-based performance, if you will.
So that wasn't across the board then?
No, it was not. Now, so last year the exceptional circumstance last year was the situation where most of the EMTs were, their pay rate here was below, and not trivially below, Thomaston and St. George, which just creates a retention situation because they can choose how many hours to work in what town. So if we're paying $12 an hour and St. George is paying 14, guess where they're going to want to spend their time. So
yeah.
So Amy we brought them all in line with each other.
Well, that's exactly the stuff I'm talking about, and I think there's no secret that we're not really competitive in a lot of areas. We learned that over and over again. But okay. So do we want to suggest a COLA increase plus a?
I think the same as you had last year sounds appropriate. The 2% COLA plus the 1% additional merit pay.
Penny, you got your hand up? I'm sorry.
Well, I had a question about budget committee, so I don't want to interrupt your COLA discussion.
I guess I'm still not clear on how the 1% works. So are you saying that we could end up with an EMT driver who makes 1% more than another EMT driver?
Yep.
Theoretically, yes. It was up to the department head to decide about the merit.
Yeah, but we don't have that, from what I understand.
It hasn't happened that way.
It hasn't happened, and I'm not sure I want to go down the route where it does personally, but so is that the case everywhere? We don't have similarly classified people paid at different rates?
Not to my knowledge, we don't have anybody similar classified at different rates.
I guess that's more a question to Owen, but.
Well, and that's kind of what I was looking at right now. Most everyone got generally a 3% increase. What I was just scrolling through was to figure out if there were, so like the road commissioner got 3% increase, the library director got 3% increase. So it's everyone baseline got a 2% increase. It was the discretion of the board and department heads whether that additional percentage. So for example, animal control officer wage, their increase was only 2.5%.
No, that's our fault then.
Yeah, so EMA director got a 3% increase. E911 coordinator got a 2.5% increase along with animal control. So again, everyone got 2, most people got 3, and some folks got a halfway point.
Well, and then I also understand that Phil gets 2 different rates. He gets a rate for his time in the front office, and he gets a different rate for the hours he's allocated to the assessor's office, which
No, it's the same rate. It's just split over 2 different budgets.
That's not what I understand. I understand it's a different rate per hour. Not much, but that was my understanding. I might have that wrong, but I guess I don't know. I like the idea of, I guess years ago, and actually Penny can talk to this a little bit too. I think we had some major discrepancies between some different positions in terms of their effort and hours and responsibilities. And I think we did a lot of work over several years to kind of bring those together. And I hate to see us backtrack on that with things like, the animal control officer doesn't get it because it was an oversight, or, you know what I mean? So I'm a fan of consistency in that sense, but.
No, I think it comes down to. Go ahead.
Sorry, could I just ask for a clarification? So if you get the 1% on top of the 2%, that becomes your base rate. And so if that process goes on year after year and somebody always gets it and somebody always doesn't, then you start having these divergences?
Well, that's my fear.
That's what I'm understanding. I just want to be sure I'm with the program.
If I could, so
Yes.
Generally, yes, but just like was referenced earlier, there was a correction done with a more significant increase to our ambulance service because it had gotten out of whack. So you're correct. Sometimes these things can compound year over year, but it doesn't typically go on for too long before there's like a market forces correction where some people will want to work at this town, but not this town because there's an additional 50 cents. And then we'll do that correction like we did last year.
So, but let's kind of segment the categories here. That is a competitive equity imbalance, the ambulance service last year. May repeat itself, who knows? And I'll take the fire department because it's got the largest number of other employees. My thought process has always been, first of all, there's been a discussion that has surfaced all along since I've been here about whether we do an automatic increase to the fire department and call it a cost of living increase because none of them makes his or her living as part of our fire department. They all have other jobs and that Brian is the one who's brought that up several times, but then he gladly takes the 2 or 3% and gives it out to his folks. But so my logic in saying 2% COLA, 1% performance-based is that not everybody gets that 1%. And that's why you have, because some people perform better than others.
Yeah, I think what we're really doing is we're empowering the department head
to, right,
those kinds of choices and trusting that they'll do that. If it gets out of whack, then the select board has to step in at some point. But it hasn't been, historically, that hasn't been the case. Certainly not in the last 6 years I've been involved.
John.
Walter, I agree with you. I think the ambulance case, and there could be other cases, is a different kettle of fish. I think that's one of the few places where, not one of the few places, but and I think that's what that exception comes about. And I could see another case where, I don't know, say all of a sudden we had a code officer and we enacted a whole new ordinance and asked the code officer to work 6 more hours or something. I mean, that's a different kettle of fish to me than the sort of, I don't even want to use COLA now, but then the sort of pay increments that jump up annually or down, I suppose. So I don't want to kind of bring the ambulance into this because I really agree with you. That's a sort of a market-driven issue. And I think some of our employees, I think of many, are going to continue in their part-time jobs, whether we give them no pay or no increase at all, or whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
In terms of some of our long-term dedicated part-time people. So I guess in a public setting like this, where everybody knows what everybody's making, it's all public information. I guess philosophically I personally would just like to see an across the board adjustment and leave it at that. And if somebody's not performing, then we deal with that with discipline issues. But that's just my philosophy.
Jan?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what John's saying. I guess I'm not as concerned about it. I like the empowerment at the department head level. I mean, I think that, we're kind of above that and let, we can be the oversight if we see it kind of out of balance or we see that it's unfair in some way. But, we've had, to go back, there's been years that the select board has not taken any COLA or increase at all. Owen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think there was a year when you decided you didn't want to take it and you either wanted to pass it on to your people or something else. I mean, that's the kind of flexibility I guess I like that we allow by making it a cost of living plus. If we say everybody gets 2% and you just leave it at that, then the department has no authority to, kind of recognize people's performance. And if you say, okay, everybody gets 3%, then you kind of remove the incentive again for performance. There's pluses and minuses, I guess, to all of it, but I think it's working okay right now, and we certainly should keep our responsibility and watch it and make sure that we're not getting out of balance. But I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, as best as my observation is, we haven't heard a lot of complaints.
Well, it sounds like nobody's not doing it.
And we haven't had a lot of attrition that can be attributed to I didn't get a big enough raise or I didn't get a big enough COLA increase. I do agree that my own sense is that the town has benefited for a long period of time by dedicated in resident employees taking the hometown discount to work here. And then when we went to hire a code officer 2 years ago, we got slapped in the face with the John Snow, if you will, hometown discount was a thing of the past. I think the same thing happened with LPI. I think that we'll be confronted with that in some other areas as we move forward. But to date, we haven't had, I think what we've been doing for the last few years has worked okay. Yeah, Owen.
So just a couple of quick things. For all of your all's direct reports, you will go through and look at each one of those department heads and what there's proposed for an increase during the budget process, and you'll have much additional time to think and be thoughtful about those individual ones. As it relates to the folks that, like a department head that now has discretion, just a reminder, so we reference ambulance a lot because that's where most of the people are. There's just a lot more of payroll and there's a lot more of individuals there. So there's more opportunities for standouts and folks with deficiencies. But the way that we defined it in the budget is paramedics get paid a certain rate per hour per diem, advanced certain rate per hour per diem. So there's not really even that discretion to do that within the department with the most amount of people. Fire department's very similar. I actually can't think of an example where a department head themselves, like other than me, that has my two employees that are direct reports to me, they are still each individual budget lines within the budget, and the board and the budget committee sets that. And just to kind of close that, can you all remind me, is wages and so salaries and wages and stipends are the aspects of the budget that the budget committee does not actually weigh in on, or did I make that up?
No, they have no authority. They can weigh in all they want.
Yeah, they can weigh in, but they don't vote on
Correct.
that aspect.
Correct. It's the sole province of the select board.
Yep. So you all will completely have that during the budget process, and the 2%, 3%, and discretion at department head is a great conversation, but I just don't even know if it's reality for how we function.
Yeah, I mean, the first question that Moira asked me when she starts thinking about the budget is, what's the wage guideline? Yes, she's interested, and yes, I hear the opinions. At least I have during my tenure, but we set the rates, we set the compensation. John.
Yeah, please don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I am not thinking that a paramedic with their high level of training and responsibility should be paid the same as an EMS driver. That is not even on my radar. If that's what you're thinking, that's not the case. And I'm not saying at all that we shouldn't have an opportunity and an avenue and a way for people to make exceptions. But I do feel like one of the best animal control officers I've ever seen here somehow or other got less than I mean, so, but I'll go along with the 2 and 1 if that's what people want to put in the guidance.
And again, I'm sorry, as a reminder, this topic is budget guidance for department heads.
Yeah, I understand.
And again, you all really have a lot of discretion for budget time on what that number and rate actually is. So this is more kind of the things that Jan, and we were talking about earlier, maintenance, being prudent. I almost see this more as a packet than just the brief stuff that we did last time, because we are going to have to include timeline and a slight, description of the fact that the first 6 months of a year are different than the last 6 months, and we're doing an 18-month budget. And so it'll be more of a just, hey, this is a different year. Here's how things are going. But when we get to this sensitive topic, how much compensation individuals get. It'll all be at your all's discretion in a couple of months.
John?
That actually was going to be my next question. Are we talking 2 and 1 for 12 months and then 2 and 1 for the 6 months? I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking we were talking about, but I'm not sure. This is a different animal this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be part of the whole, to the guidance that I kind of gave, barring some from you all, was go about setting your budgets as though it was a year and set your year budgets. You can safely do that because the additional 6 months is going to be pretty different than what your whole year is going to be. So a lot of this stuff is why we're trying to start the budget process a month earlier than we would have if we pushed it back on the same timeline, because we're going to have a lot of these conversations. What happens at the end of that year, and we go into those additional 6 months.
I would say-
Which is interesting because I don't think of it that way. I think of it as the additional 6 months is the first 6 months.
Yeah, I do too.
And I had not thought through 3%, a 3% increase between January and June, and then another one between June and June.
That makes sense. That makes sense too, then, I guess. But that still leaves them making the same money for an 18-month period, does it not? Or am I missing something here? Yeah, would have been from July 1st to December 30th. And typically when we had our town meeting in March, the pay raises would have been retroactive to January 1st.
Right.
And I guess I don't feel like our employees should lose out because we're changing the fiscal year.
I don't either. We might. And I appreciate this discussion because we'd have a pattern, but just because there's no reason to do something the same way this coming year than we have for the last 3 years, just because it's easy. So I appreciate poking around the edges here. But I would suggest.
I would see no problem with the decision to retroactive back 6 months if we have to. I mean, I don't see a problem with it. We did it. We've done it for 3 with no problem.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that the employees shouldn't have to suffer because we've gone to a 1.5 year budget. But I also think that, we could craft it to where in June, when the town passes the budget, we retroactive that next 3%, if you will, back to the 1 January date.
Yeah, and I assumed we wouldn't go ahead until town meeting approved that, but if we're giving them guidance on what to build their budgets,
Yeah.
Which is the point of this discussion.
And so I think what happens is what we're really saying here is every budget maker raise your payroll by 3%.
Well, I'm saying different. I'm saying 3% for the first year and another 3% on top of that for the 6 month period.
Okay, well, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
No, and that perfectly tees up kind of the thing that I wanted to say, which was, retroactive is what we've been doing for eons because we don't know that there's a pay increase until it's approved, but we've been paying people. So we've been doing that. Going to a 6 month retroactive is a little bit different, but it is what it is. What we're going to be doing in this budget is requesting for funding to cover these expenses. What we can do on the operational end, based on your all's guidance, is, pay at a certain rate until a certain time, and then change that rate, not by a budget approval, but by internal operations, because that's how we built the budget. And we just now know with the increased rate for this time, we did fund enough to cover the 3% increase for the first 12, an additional 3% after that, but we wouldn't have to necessarily pay them the same consistent rate through all of it, just based on what we appropriated to cover those expenses.
Sorry, I'm trying to do some math here.
Yeah, so like, come
percent.
January 1st of next year, Phil can up the rate based on how we approve the budget, and then we can move those things over time. The big question is, were we thoughtful? Did we think it out, and did we request enough money to do that and cover those expenses during that
Well,
time?
isn't that what this whole conversation's about?
Yeah, no, and I maybe I was misinterpreting, but how we pay people, does that keep them at the same rate for 18 months? Does that, I just wanted to, clearly state, we're going to fund whatever you all want to fund, and then can have different rates throughout the year. We can change those.
Well, I'll make a motion. If at least we can do something formally, we can knock it down, or
You can do that. I just, again, want to stress, this will very much be a topic for conversation that can change over the budget cycle. This is department head guidance, and voting on a COLA or something, I'm not really sure is what you wanted to do tonight. If you want to, that's fine.
I thought we were voting on giving them guidance to develop their.
Yeah, exactly.
And usually in previous years, we had a draft document like the one that we looked at earlier to actually vote on it, but this is guidance. I don't think that you actually have to have a vote. It's, saying that this is the guidance we're going to have. One of the members drafts it up, it gets wordsmithed, and then as soon as it's done, it gets sent out to department heads. It's not making a decision, it's providing guidance, and you can do that by email.
Well, but I want to hear what John has to say.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I think the only way we make decisions is by motions. So anyways, my motion was going to be that the guidance that we provide the department heads to build their initial budget requests, they're not budgets, they're budget requests, should include a 2% cost of living adjustment and a 1%, whatever it is you guys called it. I don't have the sheet of paper in front of me. For the period January 1, 2020 to December 30th, January 1, 2021 to December 30th, 31st, 2021, and an additional 3% for the 6-month period, January 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Okay, I second that motion.
Okay. This gets the ball rolling, and when if we like the numbers, then we'll keep the numbers, and if we don't like the numbers, we won't. So, any further discussion? What? John, sorry.
I was just saying it's guidance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just guidance so they can plug numbers as they put their budget request.
Right, exactly. But but as part of this, we've opened up a discussion item for the future about compensation strategy and things forward going, and that's a good thing. So, John.
Aye.
Jan.
How do you aye?
Aye, right. Okay. So I'll send this around. I'll write the same memo that I have every year and send it around for you guys. Penny, sorry.
Mike, I have a question from a new member of the Budget Committee about their timeline for this coming year. And I wondered if there had been a note sent out, or could have a note sent out to the Budget Committee about your tentative timeline for this new fiscal year.
Yes, I'm going to do that. What I wanted to get clarity on was when we said the Budget Committee would meet, because I was going to ask Owen to set that meeting up, but I was going to give more heads up. Here it comes.
It's definitely a delay, Penny. We're talking.
Yeah, it's April or May.
Yeah.
Owen?
Actually, on that, Brian and I were talking a little bit today, and then John had swung by to do some measurements around the basketball and tennis courts, and he and I talked about it as well. I think that it wouldn't be a horrible idea to use some of this additional time that we have to see if we can get budget committee members, select board and department heads to do some pre-budget meetings that don't necessarily include budget requests and numbers and figures, but rather, generally speaking, go over and review what that department does, what they do and what they do not do, how they engage, what their mutual aid agreements look like, what their rolling stock is, what their infrastructure, because we have quite a few new members,
Budget committee training you're talking about.
Yeah, with the, you compound new members, 18-month budget, a little bit of time. We thought that at least for some of our larger departments that are more complex, going over, letting budget committee members, select board members, myself, ask good questions about how they actually do their business will help everyone better understand when they do get to their funding requests, a little bit more of the why this is necessary. It might save us a little time during the budget process as well, and where we bought a little bit of time by pushing it back. So I am drafting up an email right now to Walter saying, hey, let's talk about budget committee stuff, because I wanted to float the idea of having maybe some February meetings scheduled with budget committee, but again, not necessarily talking funding requests, but more what those departments do.
Well, let me do a different spin on that. What if the budget committee appoints a budget committee liaison to several of the departments, and that liaison's job is to learn everything there is to know about the operation of that department and its numbers and its funding, and doesn't necessarily advocate at budget time for that department, because I'm not sure that that's where I want to go with that, but is a subject matter expert on the budget committee, a subject matter expert on the fire department ins and outs. And so that's a different spin on what you're saying, and has the advantage of, and you rotate those assignments over time. And it has the advantage of not having to call a committee meeting 5 times in February to do the same thing. So
however you all want to do, I really only saw that as kind of 3, maybe 4 departments: fire, ambulance, administrative, and then our solid waste management, because that's a pretty big spender. Those were the big 4 that I was thinking about, but however you want to do it is fine.
Yeah. Sandra?
As the only budget committee member present, I think it's a great idea.
Which?
The idea of having a budget committee member, the budget committee could decide who to send to each department to be their liaison, but I think that it would be a way for the budget committee members to be more knowledgeable. I mean, they're not going to be time for the whole budget committee to try and follow along each department, but yeah, it's a great idea. To have for 1 year, this member goes to fire, and this goes to EMS, and this goes to the transfer station, wherever, to their meetings, and is responsible for educating then the budget committee on the issues so that we're all more up to speed. Has this ever been done?
Not here that I know of. John, Penny?
Not that I'm aware of. I know we certainly had sort of non-financial discussions with different departments over the years, sort of more in line with what Owen's talked about, but I don't recall anything along the lines of what Walter was talking about.
Okay, hold on, let me hold on for a second, and I want to circle back, and I don't think I answered Penny's question, but I want to make sure that if I did, she nods in the right place, and if not, she tells me what I did wrong.
No, I'm waiting to hear, but now it sounds like things are different, but when will the regular budget committee meetings take place in 2021?
It was in John's timeline, and I just.
Yeah. The timeline, I just looked it up. The timeline, which is fluid, it's a piece of.
Right, tentative.
Yeah, we're looking at early April.
Okay.
Now that could slip or be a little earlier or, well, it won't slip much. If you count back from June and the town report and all that stuff, so.
Thank you.
Owen.
Just my observations on the 2 cycles that I've done, what it seems to be is, you know, department head will come in and meet with select board members. They get a really good understanding. Most of the structure kind of gets put on their budgets at that time. And then department head comes in, meets with budget committee. Typically during those budget conversations is when portions of their operations get discussed, and there tries to be explanation for segments related to budget requests. What we were kind of thinking was more along the lines of minimizing that during the budget time by really focusing on all of their operations and trying to have it be kind of a full educational night where ambulance and fire was done kind of back to back. Everyone just sits on the meeting. There's questions and answers. There's a little bit of show and tell. We go over what the budget committee would be doing, you know, in the next month after, you know, lay everything out that way, but kind of get some of the, let's discuss your operations right in the middle of the budget process. Maybe get that out of the way beforehand so everyone goes into it with a decent knowledge base. And the liaison is a great idea. I've typically seen it work better when you do that as an ongoing thing versus a crash course. Someone who like, hey, can you attend once a month, go to the firefighters meetings or go to the officers meetings, and you're kind of like touching base continuously. That's how you become more of that subject matter expert than the crash course. So again, however you all want to do it, this is what Brian and I thought might be a good thing to get all of the budget committee members at least on a baseline of knowledge. And then the longstanding budget committee members and select board, just maybe a brief update and reminder on certain things, but then everyone's kind of on the same page, and then we start talking numbers.
Well, let's keep in mind that for at least my tenure here, the budget committee has had Gail and Donna and Jeff and Moira, so institutional knowledge like to beat the band, and that's no longer the case. So we've got their learning curve to deal with. And I'm sorry, Jan, I talked over you.
No, I hadn't said anything. I was just going to say, to move this along, what I'd recommend is you talk to Moira, talk to the budget committee chair, and see what they'd like to do, how they'd like to do it. Whether they want to meet as a whole committee or whether they want to appoint an advocate,
We do have Terry, I hope.
Yes.
What did I didn't hear what she said.
Terry Baines, I hope is still on the budget committee.
Last I heard, yeah.
And has a large working knowledge of all the budgets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also don't want to overcomplicate this. We're still a very small town.
Yes, we still get the work done in 4 days. But on Monday, it never looks like it's gonna ever end. Just get you ready for the for that week, Sandra.
Oh, thanks.
And remember, when all is said and done, we're only 20% of the assessment. It's the school budget that really counts.
Yeah, but on the Mondays, we just scratch our heads and say, how can we ever get below the LD1 limit? And then magically on Thursday we are.
Right.
Which is often not without some pain. Okay, so I have some action items. Draft a budget guidance memo and chat up Moira about her view of where she would like to go with the budget process and the education process, keeping in mind that she has, Terry's not exactly a rookie by any stretch of the imagination. Camille and Kate this is their second time through. Linda and Chandra, this will be their first time through, and same with Bob. So go ahead, John.
No, I don't want to belabor this longer, but what you said just a minute ago about all the new people on the committee sort of made me lean towards, at least initially, Owen's idea, because I think there's so many people that are kind of new blood on there that, it might be a good idea to, at least in this situation, to kind of do, as opposed to the one-on-one one. But just my thought.
And I guess how I'd see that, what I'd see that looking like is that we have a segment in a normal select board meeting where fire comes in. Typically what we do with these budget reviews is Brian comes in and meets with us, and Amy and Owen, and they come in and meet with us at 10 o'clock on a Thursday for at least the first pass of their budget or the second pass of their budget. And we settle ourselves as to what the product that they're going to take to the budget committee looks like. And then the budget committee sees them and the numbers for the first time. I think what I'm hearing is that that the budget makers should present to the budget committee and to us more of an operations plan or an operations review than just their budgets. Is that what you and Brian had discussed, Owen?
And basically trying to front load it and just explain operations and have people with these new members really be able to spend some time not asking financial detail questions.
Right.
But what do you do?
Right.
Yeah, right. Leave the numbers aside.
Yeah, and Brian had mentioned apparently a handful of years ago, he had put together a PowerPoint. I mean, we all know death by PowerPoint, but something like that would be also a good exercise for the department heads to start putting some of this stuff down, and just like I said, a show and tell, a question and answer, go over it so that when we actually do get to those numbers and it's, is this item related to that thing that we talked about before? Yes, it is. Okay. And then you're not tying up your budget time with, so what does that thing do? Because we talked about that a month before.
Well, anything like that. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just, as the new member, feeling the need of, and that's why I've been coming to the select board meetings, is just feeling the need of context. I just picture having it all thrown at me in 1 week where I've had no background. So any way to get that background, I'm in favor of.
The economic model of the town is not exactly the most difficult thing to decode. So, but the subtleties underneath the operations of the various departments are there for sure. And I think Brian will be the first one to say, no, a lot of people don't know what I do or what the department does. So, okay, more to follow on this, or more to come on this. I think, have we exhausted the subject of budget guidance for the department heads? Great.
Tonight.
All right, so John, you're our ranking expert now on the LWCF grant. So hold forth.
Yeah, well, you got my updated memo. I went back to Doug with some questions, just trying to help Owen out because I know Owen's got a lot going on and also this project's obviously going to transcend his departure. So I don't want to, it's getting late and I don't want to regurgitate the whole memo. But I guess the real highlights are, the question I had was, depending on whether you built, 28 parking spaces or 8, it could be a significant difference in the cost. My approach was to sort of make it minimal. And that's kind of where I'm leaning because I think it's going to be difficult to raise the extra funds. So it looks like we need 8 or 9 spaces. And it gets a little tricky because we got to make access to the handicap gates, which are quite, unfortunately, they're far apart. The one on the tennis court is on the right side of the side, and the one on the basketball court is towards the street, but it's way to the right side of that court. They couldn't both be in the middle. But anyways, I talked to him about what is some eligible costs, what isn't. The one thing we really, really got to remember is we don't want to actually do anything until the grant is open, because if we do, you can't count it as match. Mm-hmm. So if someone comes along and says, "Jesus, I can move that gate for you this weekend," don't let them do it. The other thing that I thought was quite interesting was if we did want to put the lights in, 2 things were quite interesting. If we did want to include the lights, we could sort of include that as a sort of an alternate A. And then if it became very clear that we couldn't raise the match for the lights, that they would allow us to kind of pull that out. And I didn't realize that before. And then also he indicated that we don't have to have the match firmed up 100% in February. We do have to have a reasonable plan, and he really couldn't define that, but he said, obviously, if you tell me you're going to raise $200,000 between now and end of February with bake sales, I'm not going to consider that a reasonable plan. So I think that's something that's sort of negotiable. So I know Owen's working on pulling some costs together. I actually went up there and measured some things today. I just wanted to get a sense, and I'm working on a little sketch. I wanted to get a sense of how much, if we did go the minimal route on the parking, how much area we're talking about in fill. And I wanted to look at the drainage there a little more today. So I'm going to draw up a little sketch. I think the next step is we need to get this into him by February, the revised application, as I put in the memo. If we want to have a chance of getting the courts resurfaced again this year. So I think we need to kind of pin down the costs as quick as we can, and maybe put together some sort of fundraising letter or something, or even I mean, if someone had some fill they could donate, that could be counted as a match. Jerry thought the town might have some out back at the landfill that would be good for the base. It wouldn't be good for a top coat, but that's kind of where we're at. And I'm going to drop that little sketch, circulate it around. I know Owen feels a little differently than I do. And I think he's right that if you're going to put in 8 spaces, you can put in 10 for not much more, or you can put in 12 for not much more. But I'll be honest with you, I've never seen more than 4 or 5 cars out there at a time. So my sense is to go minimal, because I think we might have a hard time raising the match. But so that's kind of where I'm at. I've kind of taken the bull by the horns on this a little bit. I hope I haven't stepped on anyone's toes. But
no, not at all.
So, questions?
Owen?
Yeah, I just want to expand slightly on that. So I have had some additional emails with Alan from the lighting organization. I think John's absolutely spot on as far as the lighting. I think I underappreciated the cost of what that would be and how much of a significant increase that has the potential to be. And so the ability to kind of pull that out, but still have parking accessibility and the resurfacing done is definitely the priority. They did say that there were 2 other municipalities, but it kind of became confusing when I got the contact information. They look more like schools than they do municipalities. But that they accessed easier, cheaper CARES Act monies to install lighting at their outdoor recreational spaces. I don't know if this is an outdoor rec thing in response, but there looks like there might be some opportunities to accomplish lighting separately and through different funding sources and still get accessibility and everything, with the only kind of caveat on the planning would be, if we know we're going to do lighting potentially at some point in the future, let's just not put a landscaping rock right where you're going to have to move it. And that's a ridiculous example, but be thoughtful if we're going to do site work that we prep the site to accommodate for lighting versus having to do additional work to do lighting because we didn't think about it when we did a bunch of earthwork.
Okay, Jan?
Yeah, I was just going back to John's comment about, 8 spots versus 12. I mean, I understand the initial cost might be reasonable to do that, but we need to also think about the reoccurring maintenance cost that we're going to have on this. All of these improvements, just like when we did them years ago and built those courts, will eventually come around to the same cycle again, and we'll be resurfacing and replacing and redoing. So the cost is going to continue to escalate. I like the idea of putting the lighting in the package as an additional, can we fund it and be able to pull it out if we need to. I'd like to have the full, the top level court, but the reality is I'm not sure that we can afford it. So we've got a plan for, as Owen said, the minimum is to get access, to get some parking, and to get those courts refurbished so they're usable. Beyond that is nice, but not necessary.
John?
Yeah, and I would point out also that the lighting is going to come with operational and maintenance costs. That's not a very protected area out there. I could see potential vandalism. I'm not saying that's not a good reason to do it, but I think that's, in my mind, I haven't even come to the conclusion whether I feel that that's desirable, even if it's doable, personally. And I think that's one decision that the board was going to have to make, at some point. It sounds like we don't have to make it maybe as quick as we thought, but I also would point out very quickly that Doug recommended that we not pave the parking area just for the very purposes you're talking about, Gina, because it cuts down on maintenance costs for the future.
Yep.
So gravel or
a hard
stone dust or something like that?
Hard packed gravel.
Reconstituted,
Yeah, maybe mixed with some, yeah.
So what are the, what do we need numbers? What do we need costs to put into the grant application?
We need the cost for, if we're going to do the lighting, we need the cost of the lighting. We need the cost to construct the parking lot and the cost to move the gate. And what we need to get, I think initially, is sort of an arm's length cost for that. And then we can then value the in-kind contribution. And I believe Jimmy Callick's working on that. And I don't know what he's using for specifications for the parking area. Moving the gate, I guess you don't really need specifications, but is that correct, Owen?
Yeah, I met with one of his employees that's very familiar with the site and also familiar with the resources that the town has that it might be able to contribute, specifically that fill that we have back at the stump dump. We don't actually think that would be useful for some of the parking stuff. It could be useful for landscaping and grade and other areas, but not necessarily drainage areas. But yes, they're working on that. And I just wanted to say, now that I'm kind of thinking about it, as long as it's acceptable by Land and Water Conservation, a potential happy medium might be simply getting power from the line that runs to the stump dump across the road, either under or over. simply to have a power outlet there, something you could plug a radio into, but that would be that kind of forward-looking prepping of the site, getting the power across the other side of the road when we do light. It's necessary one way or the other. And if we can, bring that over for a lighting conversation in the future, but fund it through the Land and Water Conservation, that might be a happy medium where we at least have a power box there and some things that people could charge a cell phone while they're playing basketball, or plug in a radio and listen to music while they're playing tennis. But then that really helps when it comes time to actually do the lighting, whenever that happens to be, because we've solved that problem of getting the power across the road. Anyway, I'm meeting with Tom Hedstrom tomorrow specifically to look over the site again. He's Hedstrom Electric. He's familiar with the area, and he just did lighting at the Union courts, and we'll be having a phone consultation with Alan Grady from the lighting company at the same time, so that Tom, as like a person who does the install type aspects, and Alan is the person that does the design type aspects, can really get their arms around it and offer us a multi-tiered recommendation, high end, medium end, and low end, and various options. Alan said that he could have initially kind of gotten some of this stuff by the end of the week, but it's likely going to be Monday of next week after he takes our conversation with Tom tomorrow and incorporates it. And then I'll bring some of the thoughts from this conversation as well to Alan, so that hopefully we have a range of different options and we can figure out which one fits.
Okay, so unconfuse me. For purposes of the grant, the town has approved $10,000 to resurface the courts, and I'm going to assume that the town will reapprove that if necessary, although we have put it into an assigned account anyway. That is going to be matched, but we have run into this non-compliance situation. So we need to put on the table parking, move the gate, and better handicapped access or paths.
Well, we need paths from the parking area to the two little gates, not to be confused with the big gate.
Right. Okay. So do lights enter this as any kind of must-have?
No.
Thank you. And it's my experience is lighting a football field and a major set of other athletic fields in my prior life, and virtually all of that was funded by donations especially from the people that were interested, those of us who had kids playing. So that's just my thoughts is that if people want lights on the courts, then there should be fundraising. I don't like the idea of taxpayers paying for that. Yeah, Owen.
I definitely agree with that. Some of the nice to haves are your typical go-to fundraising things, just where there's the good potential that they'll cover half the costs. Jimmy Kellick has brought up that we probably should be repaving Stump Dump Road at some point in the not too distant future. We're going to be tearing up that to do site work for the parking lot and have equipment in there anyway. So I would just recommend that if we're gonna scrap lighting, that's completely fine, because it's a nice to have, but I do think we should be thoughtful of potentially digging a channel and running underground conduit to have electricity that could be utilized for lighting much closer to the site itself, and then we cover everything back up with the parking lot, and we don't have to dig it back up if we're going to do lighting in, say, 2 years or whatever after you've done a fundraising effort.
All right, so.
Yeah, Walter, the lighting came up at the meeting that I attended with Doug, and Ed Modell was there, and Penny was there, and Rich Norman was there. I think at that meeting there was some concern expressed, do we even want it? But the consensus, I think, was, well, if we can get the number for free, let's get the number. The information doesn't hurt.
Great. Okay.
Oh, and just the last thing, I still haven't heard back from the tennis court people. I'm not really sure exactly how it plays in, but the actual resurfacing costs, considering how long it's been since we initially got that quote, and then all the delays through COVID and everything, there might be an additional expense built in now for that initial surfacing. Those quotes are usually only good for 30 days. We use them for planning, and then we have to like figure out if something changes. You got to adjust after the fact. I just haven't heard back from them whether it's flat $1,000 increase, $10,000 increase, and then we cross. It's not going to be 10,000. I'm making that up, but I just haven't heard back from them, and I'll try to pin down better numbers on the surfacing itself as well.
So, okay, so.
I have one last question of Owen, if I could. So what is Calic's parking lot estimate based on in terms of the number of spaces, or is he going to give you a range, or is he...
It was going to be a range in basically roughly the entire face of the tennis court to the kind of dip between the tennis and the basketball court would be one range, and then going the entire length down to the end of the basketball courts. And then I believe also, like you and I were talking, John, some potential of drainage in between the basketball and the tennis court as well, and bringing that grade up. One of the other things that I've been thinking about anyway, looking at it a decent amount, where we're going to be doing all this site work, definitely, thinking like a car that wants to park, but also as water that wants to move. And so if we're putting all this infrastructure in, really being thoughtful about water management and how we cycle things. It's a little bit damp in and around there. It's not too bad, but definitely looking at the site holistically and making sure that all this water that we might catch goes in the right place and doesn't cause us issues in the future. So that was a lot of what Kellic and I talked about as well, was kind of drainage and management of water, in addition to the end goal of having those new parking spaces.
Okay, so we have a Calic estimate, a gate moving estimate, and we're going to have all.
Those are the same.
Who owns this, and when do we think it's going to be available?
Yep. So basically, all site and earthwork, including moving of the gate and drainage control and creating of the parking spaces, is a quote or an estimate generated by J.K. Calic.
Okay.
Musco, I think, is the lighting organization. They're going to provide a range of, everyone's kind of providing a range of estimates based on what you all want to do and providing you different options. So Musco is going to do a range of lighting options, and then the only that might change would be the resurfacing itself. And we've never talked about the gate structure. That's something I'd like to kind of, what has been described to me multiple times is when you do a resurfacing, there's a lot of like the $20,000 to just resurface a couple hundred square feet. Like, that sounds crazy, but you have to also think you have to take the entire gate structure down, because you can't do a removal and then a depth reconstruction and then put it as though it's new without removing the gate and then reinstalling it. I believe that that's all part of this. That's why I've reached out to the tennis people to try to reconnect with them, really understand what their process would look like, so that hopefully it doesn't interfere with any of the new bolt-ons. When we had initially approached all of this, phase one, resurfacing by itself, standing alone. Phase two were these other things. I never talked to the phase one people about phase two because it didn't matter at that point. Now that they're kind of meshed together, I do want to understand more what the resurfacing people stuff looks like and how it might interact with these aspects in phase two. like I said, I had emailed both of them and just haven't heard back from them yet. I was hopeful that it was just a holiday thing, but I'll ping them again.
So on or before January 26th, will we
Before.
have what?
Before.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on this?
Nope.
Thank you so much, John and Owen. All right, old business, delinquent personal property taxes.
So you got two last remaining ones. You got Spruce Head Pizza and you got Hoggy. We've tried to be communicating with them in various different ways. The Maine Coast Seafood is still outstanding, but I wouldn't recommend at this time moving forward on any sort of small claims because we are working with them and we will make all those go away. So the two remaining delinquent personal property taxes that you have for consideration to potentially do small claims. I had sent information about small claims, what the form itself is, and then some of the supplemental information that the court provides. The two ones that I would recommend that if you all want to move forward on, it would be, actually it would only just be Spruce Head Pizza, because I think if I was Hoggy, I'd contest it and say statute of limitations has expired, but it would be Russ Montgomery and Spruce Head Pizza.
Back up a second.
Yep.
So last time you told us that Maine Coast Seafood hasn't paid and had paid, but they haven't, and they still haven't.
Correct.
And they basically said to you that their tenant was supposed to pay, but as far as I'm concerned, we assess Maine Coast Seafood. We have no relationship with their tenant. If their tenant wants to pay it, that's fine. But our beef, if you will, is with Maine Coast Seafood. They don't get off the hook because their tenant was supposed to pay and didn't. So unless they pay quickly, we should be sending them the same letter that we sent the others. And my other question is, has Russell Montgomery now been sent a certified letter? Because you discovered he hadn't been sent one.
No, I think that he was still sent one. I think I just grabbed you the wrong one, thinking that I had grabbed you the right one.
No, last I knew, you said that he hadn't been sent one because it was beyond the statute of limitations on the small claims. And then Jan responded back.
Oh.
It's a yes or no. Has he been sent one or has he not?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Well, I think he needs to be. And I thought that was going to happen already.
How about Spruce Head Pizza? Has he been sent one or has he not?
Yes.
Yeah, we got his receipt. We got
Yes.
his.
He's acknowledged. Okay.
Yes, we have the copy of the sign that they received that. Whatever you want to do with Maine Coast Seafood is fine. The tenant did come in. We did talk about their situation. The tenant did say, I'm just trying to tie some things up. I'll be in within the next week. That's why I was saying I don't think that is something we should be doing at this time.
I'm okay with that if it's truly a week and not 6.
Yes.
Um,
If I can't tell you that it's paid by your next meeting, absolutely.
and then I was on the impression that you were going to send Russell a letter once you found out that you hadn't, but that hasn't happened yet either. And I personally feel we should. And I don't care if the statute of limitations has expired or not. The letter says that we will either take them to court or turn them over to collections. If we can't take them to if we can't take them to small claims, we certainly can turn it over to a collection agency. So I personally am in favor of getting that letter, the certified letter out to him that I thought went months ago, out.
But I think the problem is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Owen, you don't have an address for him.
But I thought you don't know where he is.
No, and that's why I tried the whole online, because I could find him on LinkedIn. I sent him a message that way. I found him on Facebook. I sent him a message that way. I tried to see if I could find some numbers that were like public. So
And just send it to his last known address.
Yep.
I mean, we do that all the time.
No, and I'm sorry that I've drugged this along and gotten so kind of backwards on this aspect, but I'm writing a note right now. We'll get
Yeah.
that letter sent out tomorrow.
Well, we've made progress on it.
Yep. No, and the letters that we had sent out before did a lot of people, we
Yeah.
cleared that up.
Yeah, yeah. No, we've made progress on it, but it's just been slow progress.
And if you all, if you wanted to talk with the assessor about any, concerns about going back earlier in this meeting, talking with them about personal property taxes has been fascinating and frustrating and ridiculous all at the same time. So it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, but that's different than this.
Yeah, but I mean, Walter, just to clarify, like that confused look, we could, if they don't send us something saying that they have this equipment this year, we can assess them a $500,000 bill if we want to, and it's their responsibility to prove us otherwise. It would be ridiculous for us to do. There's a lot going on with personal property tax, and because it's not such a huge revenue generator, and there's not the same statutory tying of your property in the municipality and the lien maturity, and all of a sudden we're taking your house, those mechanisms don't apply for personal property. And so it's a struggle, from my understanding, that a lot of towns deal with. Some manage it better than others, and we're all still trying to learn the best way to do it.
Well, it seems to me that, this is, if we had a large industrial tax base with a lot of equipment, capital equipment, then, that would be one thing. But we have these small operations that fail as often as they are successful.
No, our assessor's agent also does Boothbay Harbor, and that was raised as an example of a town that, because of the differences in what they have for businesses, they do take personal property taxes much differently and much more seriously.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
just don't have a huge amount.
Okay, all right, so last known address for Russell Montgomery, and if Seacoast doesn't pay by our next meeting, we'll take the next action. Is that what I'm hearing?
Sounds good to me.
Okay,
I'll see if I can find an address, because your last known is probably now the Maritime store.
probably, exactly.
So if that's it, you might as well just throw that in the trash, but
It covers us though.
Yeah, that's John's absolutely right, that we can produce that we sent it to the last known address is a smart thing for us to do. It's worth the $6.50.
Okay, all right. Review and approval of the department banking policy at long last.
Yeah, I sent that out to each of you. If you don't have any objection, I'll smooth it on letterhead and get it to the office for signature.
I move we approve the policy as presented, I guess, today or yesterday.
Yep, January 5th.
January 5th, okay.
Second. Since you wrote it, Jan, I'll second the motion.
I edited it really, but I think it's ready to go. It's fairly simple and get it done.
Good.
Good. John,
Aye.
Jan,
Claudio, aye.
Walter, aye. All right, street light update. Please make it quick. It's getting late. I'm hungry.
Not much to update. I keep playing phone tag with them. I'm not even going to waste your time with an update. There's really nothing to update. I keep playing email tag with these people and trying to schedule stuff. And I'm not blaming them. It's been the holidays and all that stuff. Streetlights are doing well. I'll have a better update next time.
All right, this is just to keep.
Actually, if you want a streetlight update, I think, just from memory, like, we had a $9,000 budget for streetlights. At the end of the day, we're only at like 7,000 that we paid. We've somehow saved 2,000 this year I think it was rate changes, but also since the move of us buying that infrastructure for CMP, we haven't paid a streetlight bill, even for what we have been utilizing, because we got like a big credit when I kind of identified some discrepancies that CMP had. So we recently got another bill for the streetlight, and it was a $0 bill, and we still had 50 something dollars of credit on it. So we haven't paid a streetlight bill, and we've saved about $2,000 on a $9,000 budget.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right, maintenance priorities.
Not much either on that. Haskell well is going to come Thursday. These kind of like walk around with department head conversations have had them more thinking about some of the maintenance stuff. I think when I put out the request for maintenance items a couple of months ago, things, you know, the pressure of the budget season and maybe the winter hadn't set in and people weren't looking at, I don't really know, but I feel like in the last couple of weeks, there's been more loose conversation about what maintenance might look like. And now people are thinking about budget requests. And so I don't really have a good update as far as a list update, but I do think that if we queried department heads right now about maintenance priorities, we might get some additional items. So I'll ping them on that again, since people have been thinking more about it on budget season, kind of pressing on them.
Okay. And make a note to this whole issue of the exhaust system. Make that an agenda item for January 26th. I'm not going to have an independent discussion on that. I just don't have the bandwidth right now.
Okay. Yep, that's fine. We'll probably still end up looking at it before then and continue to do work on then. But
well, as far as making us smart and any requests that we're going to see in the budget or whatever, that's what I want on the 26th. Whatever you're going to try to do with me, do with the three of us.
okay, do you all feel because Brian and I did talk about that, because one of the things he really wanted to do was have the discussion be in the bay itself, because it's easier to point things out and describe how the system functions and how everything rolls. I had recommended that we maybe do it with one board member to not have more people congregating, not have to think about open meeting, this and that, and then building on kind of my perception anyway, success with some of the health insurance things and now land and water conservation by having John be a bit of a select board champion on that specific topic. And then he helps me describe it to you two. He supplements, I supplement him. We kind of thought that might work with this Plymouth issue by having maybe you, Walter, be the person that we educate, the person that we loop in, and then you and I work to bring the board up to speed, and then you help me with a recommendation if you and I have alignment on what we want to do.
All right. Well, let me go back to that mail and give this more thought. Then it wasn't clear that that's what was going on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry that I brought that up. There was an email request to me from Owen and Brian. Jan.
Well, I'm still looking for a list. You know, we gave us a list early on this, and you went back to the department heads and asked for their inputs. Now I'm kind of looking for a refined list. I'm pretty familiar with the infrastructure of the town office and the fire department. So, I mean, I don't know that I need a show and tell unless it's something that I question. So I think you'll save time if we start with a list, and then if there's something on there we don't understand, then we can come and ask questions or dig deeper. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
And that the only list that I have is the list that you all have. It started with my thoughts and recollections, then I threw it out to department heads. Like I said, I want one that you can tell me the department heads have reviewed, and this is a consolidated list. If you don't get any input from them, tell us that. No, and that's what we've done. And so what you have is exactly that. What I'm saying is, I believe with the budget coming closer and closer, they're now thinking more about it. So I'll ping them again. And I think the next time you see it, there will be new items that you will have questions about.
Yeah, and some semblance of priority, at least from each department.
Yep.
And I also noted the doghouse roof, I think. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but I think it definitely needs some help.
Yep.
I brought that up to you, Owen. Maybe you've added it already.
Okay. All right. 9, communications, which is a different term for correspondence. Waldo Community Action Partners.
Well, we added, Walter, if I can interrupt you, we added the PW mutual aid agreement in there on. And as Owen started to say, I read through it. Last time, if you remember, we tabled it until this meeting. I read through it in some length, and he's absolutely right. I don't think it even applies to us. We don't have a PW department. We don't have PW personnel. We don't have PW equipment. And what this agreement is all about being able to assist other towns and have them assist us, when we need, a couple more guys on the backhoe, or we need a backhoe, or we need something. And then we reimburse them at a cost that they would set, and they come and deliver, or they don't. And it's no obligation. It's almost a letter of intent that you would consider a request. Doesn't say you have to do it, but I don't think it even applies to us. So I'm not sure that we've been signatories in the past, but if we were, I don't know how we can obligate our contractor who provides all those services to do anything else. So I think it's, we can just set it aside and say, sorry, it doesn't apply to us.
And that's what the EMA people said. And interestingly, when I asked the question, I was like, well, we don't have public works. We have a contract. And if we were to sign this, did we just obligate our contractor? And what he actually said was Knox County EMA has a separate agreement already with J.K. Kellick.
Yep. And if it's that kind of an emergency, the county takes over and they'll direct people.
And it seemed to be, it's coming on the same page. So in an emergency situation, you don't have to go to your board to approve it and the terms are already defined, but we're not coming to anyone's aid and assistance because we have no public works. So.
Yep.
Okay, I move we indefinitely table this item.
Okay, I second.
All right. Thank you, Jan. If no further discussion, John?
Aye.
Jan?
Claudio, aye.
Wright's aye. Okay, now, lost my agenda. Waldo Community Action Partners. This is no different from Penquist, right?
Yeah, they provide a lot of different services. Only I think the transportation affects us or is provided to any of our citizens. This is another one of those. I get communication from provider agencies. My understanding is we don't fund them at this time, but you all wanted to just be continued to be informed that these requests were coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't think they're back in. We just see them for review.
Yep. The only thing that I didn't, so the same's for Midcoast Maine Community Action, but the drone delivery of packages was, I think, an informal communication, but we did include it on there in case the board wanted to have any sort of discussion, asking ordinance review or asking planning or something to think or consider for drone deliveries coming into town. And I think that was the intent behind it.
No, well, it was an email to me. And so I said, okay, this is correspondence. I'm going to put it in correspondence. And the question is the question that Eileen posed is, can we take any action? And do we want to take any action? And my initial thought was, well, this is FAA territory.
Who did it come from, Walter?
Eileen Skarka.
Yeah, but I mean, I saw your one sentence there, but I mean,
that was it.
What, is there a company that's going to do this? I mean, what's the?
She read something somewhere
Okay, okay.
about drone delivery of packages coming to a theater or a household near you,
That's
and
something.
immediately sent me that mail.
Okay.
Asking, you know, and that was just the one-liner that I sent to everybody. That
Yeah.
was it.
Okay, I did see that. I was looking for something deeper.
Yeah,
I
there
don't
wasn't
think
any,
there's any action at this
there
time.
wasn't anything.
I think it is FAA territory. It's something the airports talked about for a while. You know, first they had to regulate those damn things, and now they're going to have to regulate air traffic. And there's going to be zones around the airport, you know, elevation limitations, all those sorts of things. So I think it's coming, maybe even in our lifetime, but I don't think it's coming tomorrow or next day. So I think we got time to react. And I think the county is going to take the lead probably on it, you know, from a regional perspective.
I would think so, yeah.
But my question is, should we respond to her?
Like, I think you can acknowledge that we considered it at the select board and felt at this time there was no action required.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I would have suggested that I do that.
Yeah, something we continue to monitor and pay attention to. And you can even point to the APAC as as the agency that's probably watching this closer than any place.
You okay with that, John?
Yeah, it is kind of an interesting question, though.
Like, much more complicated than people.
I'm just kind of curious if it's come up in other towns. I hear you that it may be way off in the future, but I just sort of, I would be curious if MMA has received any inquiries about it or anything.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's way off, but I
don't think it's way off. I mean,
I don't either.
Jeff Northgraves has got an office at the airport now to run his drone business.
Yeah, the technology's there. It's the regulation that I think is
yeah.
that's enough.
Owen?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think that it is in cities. That's where they're dealing with it first. You know, it's not that the technology is not there. It's just, it's not going to fit here yet. But I just wanted to say, some of these new advanced technologies that are existing are now starting to filter their way into municipal processes, specifically self-driving cars. So that's something, you know, keeping tabs on these technologies and just trying to be thoughtful about it. Rockport had to deal with the whole concept of remote parking allocated to a potential hotel. And the workaround was self-driving cars are coming. And I got to tell you, I mean, he's right. So just, you know, hearing these things, as crazy as we might think that they are at this time, it is coming. So I appreciate Eileen and others bringing these things to our attention, because at some point, planning board, select boards, you know, it does need to be addressed, whether or not you want to regulate and talk about these things in your ordinances.
Okay. All right, so I'll respond to Eileen. Departmental reports.
I think I've kind of gone over everything in my stuff. I mean, it's whack-a-mole at the office. I can tell you about the new receipt printer that we got.
I have two questions on not on Owen's report. If you're done, Owen, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm done. I've covered
You
everything.
seem to fade away, so.
If you have questions for me, ask them. I'm happy to.
No, this is well, actually, one's a question, one's a comment. I don't see Mo's report again, and I look forward to those. I don't know what to do about that. She doesn't seem great about getting him in on time.
I'll ping her again.
That's the one report that I really look at. No, I look at them all, but.
And she's become a lot more perfunctory too. Because when she started out, she was a house of fire in the details.
Yeah. And then I was very happy to see that Amy, I think it was Amy's report, said that, a reminder went out to the per diems about snow removal and salting the areas, because I have to confess, I went up there that first snowstorm to the town office and, Owen wasn't there. I'm not sure where you were, and there was like 5 inches of snow and nobody had touched it and the office was open. And I was, so I asked Phil, I said, so what's the per diem still supposed to do that? And he said, oh yeah. And there were 2 per diems there. And I guess Phil went out and talked to them and they got up and did it. But this was after there was 6 inches of snow there and people have been trudging in and out. So I was pleased to see, and I know that's been an issue over the years. So I was pleased to see that she said she sent out that reminder, because I didn't think it was poor maintenance on our behalf, so, as a town.
Okay, is that it?
That's all I have.
Walter, were you going to talk at all about your transfer station renovation report you sent out?
I can.
Not a department head, but
As treasurer, I am going to make a request to the 3 towns to transfer their reserve funds to us. I have a hurdle to clear in Thomaston because they did not set up a dedicated reserve account. They are going to meet next week to discuss that, because they're going to call a special town meeting to do what we did in last June and what Owl's Head did a year ago. I don't have my memo, but you can see that we don't think that the scale price that we got 3 years ago of $20,000 is going to hold. But we have in our contingency fund or our capital improvement fund the ability to make up that difference. So the combination of the funding from the reserves, the $400,000 loan that we're going to close on February 5th, and whatever we then have to come up with to fund the scale funds the project, unless, okay, thank you.
yeah, the real question I had, and you're touching on it, it looks like South Thomaston owes 126,000. You know, that's less than we have in that account.
No, this was my calculation, and I'm waiting. I did this because Zell needs it. So I started with the 153,000 odd that was in that reserve in June when we approved the reserve. I deducted the amount of 27,183, which we already paid, and came up with the 126,461.
Okay, which is what we should still have in that account then.
So, but I'm looking for Phil and/or Owen to tell me exactly what that balance is.
Yep.
And I'm thinking that it should be in the neighborhood of 126,461.
Well, I have to smile a little bit when you say Thomaston didn't do this, because I was involved when Peter Lammert was on the board, and this was a long discussion over several board meetings, and now he's a selectman for Thomaston, and they never did it. I have to.
I think I put in one of my mails that you would not be surprised.
Oh, unbelievable. Okay, anyway, sidebar. I got it then. I understand now the numbers. No further questions on it for me.
Okay. Thanks. Has anybody met Zell?
I have not.
I like her a lot already. I think Thomaston will benefit from her being on the board, and we're benefiting from her being on the transfer station board. Owen went away. All right, well, the next agenda item is schedule future meetings, and I think we're scheduled out.
You mentioned scheduling some budget review meetings with department heads. We didn't come up with a date, but you had mentioned a week.
Oh, no, I was, I think I confused two different things. What I'd like to do is to schedule the budget committee meetings with us in April. So we get that on the calendar.
Oh, okay. I thought you had mentioned something about scheduling something.
And what we've typically done, John, is the budget makers, the department heads come and present pass one, if not pass 2 and 3 of their budgets to us in advance of that. Owen.
I just want to again remind that the timeline we done before has us netting a budget by March, and then we've pushed it back, end of March to April, May, June. And so we've kind of bought ourselves these additional 3 months. That's why we've pushed it to these April. I do think that we should start sooner than April with these initial meetings. I think that you all should schedule your meetings with department heads to go over budgets in March.
April is the new January.
Yeah, the timeline has the budget committee meetings in early April. I think I didn't realize, to be honest with you, that the select board held separate meetings with the department heads now. That's not the way we used to do it, but so those would have to happen in March then.
And I would think beginning March with department heads, or maybe middle of March with department heads, and then end of March with budget committee. I really think that you should start.
That changes the timeline then, which is fine, but because I had early April for budget committee.
Right. I don't see any reason not to have the budget committee and us meet in the first week of April, Monday through Thursday. That to me, when I read that timeline from John, that first week of April is the new last week in January.
No, I agree. And the difference is that the budget is different this year than it was before. And out of an abundance of caution, I would just recommend that you not pretend that it's a normal year, that you've just moved back 3 months, that you start and give yourself an additional month to work on this budget. So only move the process back 2 months. So you bought yourself 3 months, but don't pretend like it's a normal year, because it's not. Move it back.
I think if you look at the timeline, it does buy a little more time. It may not be a month, but I think it buys a couple of weeks.
And I'm being overly cautious. I'm just saying we have some time, and I know that this budget is going to be just more difficult. The extent of how much more difficult, I have no idea. So I just want to, before things get scheduled, I just wanted to put out there again, just a reminder that if the earlier that you can start this process, the more time you have to go through it.
Why? Help me understand why you think this is going to be so much more difficult.
So it's not as simple as just taking your 12-month budget, dividing it in half, taking that number, putting an increase, a cost of doing business increase, and then plugging it in.
The last January to June is similar to the first January to June, because there are expenses that we incur at different times of the year. Mm-hmm. But I really don't understand why this is going to be any more difficult. I mean, there's going to be more of it. But that's what I'm trying to not understand. I don't think it's just a matter of taking your budget and adding another 50% to the following year. Because I understand that some expenses like your insurance, you pay that all up front. You know, there's some things we pay, you know, at different times of the year. But the department heads, I think, know that. And it's not going to change next year any more than it does this year. I mean, when we pay isn't going to change. The amount, obviously, will go up a certain percentage. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I want to be cautious, but I guess I don't have the same level of concern that you do.
And I guess my thinking is, I just feel like we don't know what we don't know. There's a lot that we do know. I just can envision a handful of items, quite a few items, of which we might just get mired down slightly in nuancy thises and that's. And if that's a potential, and we have some additional time, would we not start getting into those nuancy? And maybe it all goes smooth. It's like when we do our year-end closeout, it can be a complicated thing. Things can go wrong. We started early and it almost always goes well, but we schedule that additional time in case something that we didn't realize goes wrong, and we just didn't want to like push up against this really hard deadline. So we always try to buffer in for what we don't know.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, but what I don't understand is pulling back the budget committee's meeting with the select board, because that meeting, which I still think should be the first week of April, in accordance with the timeline. In that meeting, every time we have that meeting, the budget maker comes in, and every once in a while, either we or the budget committee sends that person back to spend the next day sharpening their pencils and changing their numbers. But that work gets done in the 4 or 5 days of that meeting. I mean, it's fine. I'm going to send a memo out tomorrow or sometime this week to the budget makers, and they're going to get started. So they're going to get started in the first week of January. Then they're going to have February. Then they're going to have March. And I guess my question for you is, when you say we, who do you mean?
Yeah, I would say that also whoever my replacement is will benefit from some additional time. I really like that we do that whole kind of finalization process in a week. It has it not drag it on, but there is a lot of number crunching and late nights, all of which is fine and great, to then the next day have the revised edition, have the revised numbers, have edition 17. This year there might be more of those, and I just want to highlight, I think historically it has been the 4-day kind of gangbusters with budget committee. When we throw just a couple of wrinkles in last year with some recreation stuff, the Island Road project, we ended up having more meetings than we we had the Friday meeting. I felt like we almost met on a weekend at one point. So last year's budget process was a full additional meeting day because we had some unique items. Looking at Guilford Butler again, we spent time on that, and I can see some more additional items, possibly including the ones that have already been discussed, plus the 18-month. I have a suspicion that it's going to be more than the 4 days we thought it was before.
Well, looking at the calendar, the first full week in April starts on the 5th. The 1st of April is Thursday. I mean, perhaps we could slide it back to the last week in March, first couple of days of April or something. That buys another week. But on the other side of the coin is, this gives the department heads and the selectmen more time to put together something as well. And so, I don't know.
And something, this is just throwing stones again, but part of the problem that delayed us in this budget cycle was your inability to have a laptop in front of you and make those changes as we went through the budget, which is how we had done it in the past. So that at the end of the night, you're not working late until 10 o'clock trying to fix everything. You're going along as we talk about it with the budget committee, making the changes in the computer to the budget. So at the end, you hit print, and there's the next day's paper. You know, that I know that's a learning curve that you've struggled with, but hopefully your relief is going to have that knowledge, that ability to do that. It makes a big difference. Yeah, again, I hear what you're saying, but that's part of the challenge with the staff having to work late. You know, because we're here until, 8, 9 o'clock some nights with the budget committee, and then you're trying to set things up for the next day, and I'm sure you're scrambling because you had to do it all after you walked out of the room from a stubby pencil note that you took on a piece of paper.
I don't mind sliding it back a little bit, but I would definitely, just from a personal perspective, I would definitely like to be back here when we meet with the budget committee.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, totally.
And I'm not back here until like, not that we should make decisions around my personal life. I'm not saying that, but I'm back here around the 20th, So I wouldn't want to slide it any earlier than, say, the week of March 22nd. Just
You're here the 20th of March is when you're back?
Well, yeah, 20th, 21st, something like that. So, I mean, that next week would be fine for me.
Or the 29th.
Or the 29th.
29th.
Yeah.
I guess I.
Oh,
I don't know.
we're looking at an 18-month budget here. The later we do it, hopefully the less unknowns we have.
So what are we running up against? I mean, so if the meetings with the budget committee are the 29th, 30th, 31st, 1st and 2nd of March and April, and town meeting is the 14th or thereabouts in June, I guess I don't understand what could go so wrong in that last week in March that we're in jeopardy of not putting out an annual report and a warrant.
I think always just saying to buy as much time as you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
But,
and I mean,
I think the buying of the time is between us and it's us and the budget makers that need the time, because we're the ones that crunch the numbers.
right. And then once everything is done, it needs to get reformatted to be the type that gets put into the town report. The more I think about it, one of the, and Jan, very accurate, constructive criticism about, my engagement on the budget end. It was slightly compounded by the creating of the new budget format and the whole new Excel spreadsheet.
Yep.
And now that I think about it, though, that kind of put me back on getting the town report itself produced, because even though we caught the time and had the new budget and was able to have all the historical data and all the whatevers, you get done with the whole budget process and you breathe, and then you realize there's a whole new format. I got to take all this stuff and put it into there. So maybe it's post-traumatic stress from doing the whole brand new budget last time and thinking about, man, I finally got the RSMS 16 system. So now we get to take everything. I just got it. So I get to take everything that the intern had from the comprehensive road survey and culverts and all that stuff and put it in there. It's going to be the first budget cycle that we actually utilize that software program to give us information on what setting aside money for paving reserve and what roads you do and all that stuff. So I can envision quite a few questions about that. I can envision, more things on the land and water conservation. We might have to ask for supplemental funding on that. So it's a plus and a minus. It's not last year's budget. We have that. The document's good now. Updating that and getting that done is not going to be as complicated as it was last year. But I can just see it kind of replaced by a handful of other items. And then once everyone's done, the office still needs to take that, repurpose it, work with the printers, do the entire layout, approve their proofs, go back and forth with them, get them to actually print it, collect it up and mail it out to everyone. And I just wouldn't want to break in the linkage because we cut it a little too close thinking it was a normal year, not hitting that, getting the report to people about a week before town meeting. We always try to get it at least a week, if not more. So really, like I said, it's just an abundance of caution, not knowing what we don't know and seeing some unique things. But yeah, I didn't actually think about how much of a massive headache it was to create the whole budget while doing the budget last year. So at least we don't have to do that again.
Yeah, and this schedule buys 2 or 3 more weeks, depending on when we do it. But
I feel great with that whole transition, the last week of March. That's fine. That makes me, not that my opinion really matters, because actually I'm not even going to be here. But that seems like it's a good happy medium to finalize. That gives all of April, all of May, and then as long as we have it to the printers by the end of May, it can be back to us and we can mail it out by a June town meeting.
Okay, so March 29th.
And also, since we're not going to piggyback the town meeting with the election this year, at least this year, we can have the town meeting later in June. We could move it back to the 3rd or 4th week if we wanted to. I'm not suggesting we should, but we could.
Penny?
You're muted, Penny.
Muted.
Oh, she froze. Penny froze.
Oh, froze.
Oh.
Penny, unthaw.
It's 9:06. I'm about done.
Since we're talking dates, do we want to? So I've got the week of the 29th of March now for select board and budget committee meetings.
Yep.
Now, when are we doing the department head meetings with the select board? It's normally a week or two before. So you want to make that like the 15th of February, which would be the 3rd week of February, 3rd and 4th week?
This is one where I think there should be as much lag time as we can buy. So a longer period of time before the budget committee meeting for us to meet with the department heads.
Okay.
Because I think Penny, you're unfrozen now. So let me take your question.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to, remind you all that we may not be in a better place than we were last year as far as COVID is concerned. And that pushing out town meeting a little later might be a good idea. And the budget committee, all of that, we might need to delay.
I couldn't agree with you more, because
I think
slow pace at which we're conquering this disease, which is kind of a joke, is not showing any signs of changing.
But I think we're building a schedule assuming that it's subject to change based on COVID. At least I am in my mind.
Good. Thank you.
Well, I think that, John's going to be in those meetings via Zoom anyway. So if we're able, it'll be you and I, Walter, in the room with the department heads. Traditionally, we've needed, for the big departments like fire and ambulance maybe, we've needed 2 nights to talk about their budget. But, for the smaller departments, we whip through those pretty quick. So maybe we need more than 2 nights for the big departments again. I don't know. But I think a couple of weeks, should do it. If you want to move it earlier in February, we can, but I'll tell you, that puts me out of pocket on the week of the 8th. And I'm not going to.
February or March?
I'm in February now.
Oh, okay.
haven't we already communicated to the department heads though that we're looking at late February, early March for them to get their submittals in? Or am I dreaming that?
Well, that would be part of Walter's guidance that he's talking about, I think.
No, but I mean, sort of informally,
No.
informally, didn't we?
Informally, I don't, maybe you all have talked to them. Informally, what I've given for guidance when they ask is work on your 12-month budget like you normally would. Be thoughtful and aware that there's going to be an additional 6 months and everything's being pushed back, but be prepared to only push it back 2 months. That's basically what I've told folks. But it's all been informal. A couple of the bigger department heads, so fire and ambulance have already requested, and I've worked with them on printing out their budgets, going over, providing them some information. So I know our two bigger, more complicated ones, they're already starting on that. I talked with Ralph today about sitting down and doing his budget. I talked with Jerry today. We got RSMS 16. Jerry, we got to sit down and, think about the budget. So they are already working on it.
Well, the timeline we had that the Board of Selectmen would finalize the proposed 18-month budget in late March. And that was distributed to them. And it says February, department heads, town administrator and BOS initiate development of the 18-month budget in February. So I guess we're okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that we should be planning to review with them starting on the 22nd of February and wrap it up by the end of the first week in March. And then that gives us until the 29th of March to get ready for the budget committee. That makes sense?
Sounds good to me.
It's to me, yeah.
All right.
It's your plan. Understand.
I'll confirm that in writing to you guys. Owen?
Two last things. One is, I don't think that it would be, I think everything could be done in one night for at least the crash course overview from our two big department heads with budget committee, our previous conversation about, not funding stuff, not budgetary stuff, but operational stuff. Is that something you would want me to schedule in that interim time between when because you all don't necessarily need the crash course. So maybe you work with the department heads on that week of February 22nd. You can spill into March if you want and go kind of into the second week of March if you wanted to. And maybe what we do is either some point on the week of March 15th or March 22nd, just sometime before budget committee gets together, is when we maybe try to schedule the department heads operational overview.
Yeah, let Walter have a discussion with the.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Yeah, I'm kind of, it's late and I'm losing it here in terms of the dates and stuff.
Okay, and then do you want me to try to schedule something with Bill Lane from Gartley and Dorsey? I can do that via email. We don't have to set a date right now, but is that something you want me to work on?
I don't know what we get out of that.
I was kind of more thinking of John. I just don't think John's gone over it. And
I feel like we got enough on our plate right now. I mean, nothing,
Okay.
there's no time sensitivity here, right? In terms of,
unless you wanted to have something prepared for the budget, if you anticipated, something that you wanted to do in this upcoming budget over those 18 months, that might facilitate a more in-depth conversation. But if it's what we did last year, we put money just for the engineering services, everything got out of whack.
And then
Maybe that's what you,
it got COVID.
Yeah.
So at minimum, or I think we'd be satisfied just to repeat that. I think that the indication are that none of us has brought this up in 2020, which tells you how important it is.
I just feel like we got enough going on right now.
Yep.
It's a great, down the road, we need to do it, but I'm thinking we got enough.
that's fine.
Yeah, I am too. And don't get me wrong, I think it is important.
Oh, I do too.
I think it's less important than some of the other things we're involved with. I've got the plan and can share it with John and kind of refresh him of what Gartley and Dorsey put together and the various phases of what we wanted to do. You know, so I mean, I don't know that we need to pay for an engineer to come in and do that, but
Yeah, and I think Penny's right. You know, we may be looking at another bare bones town meeting.
geez. Maybe.
Yep.
Yep, like I said, I doing a bunch of year-end budgety, reviewy stuff. Very understandable why we didn't make forward progress on it, but just wanted to make sure I brought it up so that.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, we spent $36,000 to buy a piece of land that we haven't done anything with, and we had this great idea to do all these things. And you know, that's a sticking point. I mean, that's, you know, verges on embarrassing.
Well, the land's going to be there for 50 years.
Well, yeah.
So. Okay, so next meeting is the 26th, according to my schedule, not including the one here on the 7th. Next select board's the 26th.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we've already scheduled one, I think, for February 9 and 23.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have.
Yeah, I have those on my calendar. I won't be here for the 9th one, just so you know. And I won't be able to Zoom because I'll be hopefully on snowmobile lost in the wilderness somewhere. That's my week up north.
John and I will bond over Zoom. From
Do you want to move that meeting? I'm not wedded to the 9th.
Well, if you want me involved, obviously I'd be glad.
I think it's always important. My feeling is it's always important to have 3 if we can.
Okay.
But
You want to move it to the 16th? Either way, we're going to kind of back to back them if we move it forward or back.
And just to throw it out, nothing strikes me as super important on stacking it one way or the other, but if someone can recall that a week after week would be better in one clumping than another, but other than that, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, actually, I can't do the 2nd, but I could certainly. When are you leaving, Jan?
That week, I leave actually the Saturday the 6th and come back Saturday the 13th.
Well, we could do the 16th, and if we don't need to do the 23rd, we could cancel it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
So
Canceling
one.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So the one meeting in February.
Well, I'm saying keep the 16th and the 23rd on the calendar, but
Oh, okay, all right.
on the 16th, we decide we don't need to meet a week later, we could just cancel it the 23rd.
Got it. But then we may be doing budget maker reviews on
Right.
the 23rd, 24th.
Well, that could be, yeah.
Okay,
We're gonna
All
move
right.
the 9th to the 16th then?
I'm good with that.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, I think it's important.
Parting question before you all do your we're done thing. Any special requests for information that you want prior to your personnel policy discussion on Thursday? I do have one more personnel policy from another town. I might send you some more as well, just so you have a whole bunch of options to look at. But is there anything else that you all need for that workshop?
Well, I think we're all going to need a current copy of the personnel policy to be able to talk to it. So I don't know if you've got, I have one.
Yep.
You want to print one
I
for me?
think I have one.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
that's
I'll send it out to everyone on an email that says this is your kind of, like, this is what we'll all operate off for the workshop.
okay.
actually, I need I have it on an email. I need it on a paper copy so I can mark it up and make notes on it and stuff.
Yep.
If you could print one off for me, I'll come in and pick it up, and that way I'll use the town's paper instead of mine.
That works.
Yeah, you paid for your fair share of it, John. So go right ahead. All right. So send us personnel policy, the current official personnel policy.
Print me one, print me one.
I'll do both.
All
I'll
right,
pick it up tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
great. Is there a 9:19 motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
All
Oops,
right,
second.
second. John,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Wrights, aye. Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, Sandra.
Yeah. Thank you all for being engaged tonight.
See you Thursday.
I'm sorry. Who moved and
safe.
seconded? Who moved and seconded that?
I moved, John seconded.
Thank you.
And I'll get that donation account policy out to you all tomorrow.
Thank you.
And Owen, I'll get you those minutes. I'll take the watermark off. I'll try to get it off all pages this time.
And I'll post those so that they're on the website.
Well, let me get the watermark off and I'll send them to you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right, folks.